Oh, hold your horses now. Just give me a moment. Give me a moment. I'd like to give credit to Lazy Dragon, who drew that really fucking cool artwork that's on the thumbnail. Now, you might be wondering why am I doing this at the beginning of the video, but most people are going to see the beginning of the video than they are going to see the end of the video. So I thought, okay, this is the perfect spot to put it, you know, just a quick crediting to the person who drew the artwork, because it's really good, and they made it to begin with. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Lazy Dragon, for the artwork. I fucking love it. And to the rest of you that have made me fan art and whatnot, I will be going over it, not at the end of this video, but in the stream that I have upcoming. So at the beginning of the stream that I'm currently sort of setting up and working on, when I have the time to. If you haven't been able to tell, I've been a little bit busy lately. But at the beginning, there will be a segment going over all the really cool looking fan art that you guys have made, and, you know, crediting all of you and the person who made the thumbnail for the stream, which it's really fucking good. And then we'll be getting into the topic of that stream, which is Cat's Lair and the logs that I have been given. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and let me know your thoughts afterwards. Welcome back. I'm sure many of you have been waiting for this video specifically, and I'm glad that it is finally done, so I can share it with you and the art community, because how they react will either further many of the points that I've made about them in this series, or perhaps show that that community has some form of honesty and consistency that they actually stick to. With that said, my faith in that community is really low. Some of the early reactions to my part 1 have been seething, complete denial, and copium huffing. I previously spoke about it, so I'll have that link down below as well. But this is Ponder Sprocket in the art community's audience, so I am not all that surprised. Actually, not surprised at all. Now, before we get into Ponder Sprocket and Nezziemonster's Part 2, this is a sequel, a Part 2 of a 2-part video. Part 1 will be linked down below, and I recommend watching it if you want to know everything I'm going to be referring to. Now, just the first minute in of Part 2, and there's already problems.
Before you say I'm acting entitled, keep in mind that this girl has spoken to several strangers. YouTubers or not, that doesn't mean you know them. You think we should have learned from this situation.
Yet again, they are reading the text on screen before the actual clip, when the text on screen adds to the point I'm making in the clip, only to then actually play the clip with the text.
Nani merely tried to push it off as if it wasn't a big deal, when if you look at all the things pieced together, it could be.
The first time this happened back in Part 1, I gave them the benefit of the doubt and said it was an editing mistake, but it's happened a second time. Why is that? Regardless, we'll start this off at the 1 minute and 15-second mark.
Before you say I'm acting entitled, keep in mind that this girl has spoken to several strangers. YouTubers or not, that doesn't mean you know them. You think we should have learned from this situation.
Yeah, YouTubers that haven't treated her like garbage. I myself tried to contact her with no response. In fact, I just whisked out and deleted it because I was worried I had bothered her. I am also aware that I am not that big of a YouTuber, so I don't blame her for not wanting to talk to me about the situation in comparison to someone like Ponder and Nani who have a bigger audience. Not only are they more reliable to get her story out, but I'm less known and therefore appear like more of a stranger.
First, who are you trying to bullshit, Nezzie? Your audience, maybe? Slumers was invited to the FCK server the same month these two started scripting these videos, October of 2019. Nezziemonster was invited February of 2020. These people had themselves practically wrapped around Slumers. So this, well, I tried to get a hold of her, makes no fucking sense. She was in your Discord, your friend group. You can't use the, I can't blame her if she didn't want to because I'm not that big of a YouTuber like Ponder and Nani. I'm not that well known. Because Slumers helped James for his 2 videos, one of which was in September of 2019, and another one in fucking December. James was and still is much smaller than Nezzie. This is something you're going to frequently see throughout the series. The FCK's usage of the audience's naivety or lack of information on something, and filling it in with whatever they want to.
Akumu, it's not because she knows these people that she's willing to talk to them, it's because they were polite in approaching the situation. You were not. Even when Creepshow Art contacted Madame to get her side of the story, she started out cordial. Why? Because immediately jumping in and acting aggressive doesn't make people want to open up with you. Indicating that you were willing to listen to each side of the story fairly does, and this is not something that you conveyed when addressing Slumers, evident by you literally calling her the dumb artist everyone is talking about.
You yourself even claim that when people get aggressive with you, you return that aggression, so why on earth you thought it was a good idea to start aggressive with Slumers and then, oh goodness, be shocked when she wasn't immediately polite and clambering at your feet so that she could confess her guilt is baffling. Akumu has even acknowledged that he's removed comments from the video that we are discussing, likely because they weren't too nice.
More repetition from part 1, likely because they weren't too nice. In your own screenshot that you put on screen that you had the entire time you were making these videos, I literally gave you my reasoning. None of the comments were deleted because they weren't too nice. I was very open about the criteria of what would be deleted. Comments that lied about me or my video were deleted, and not even all of them because I quit doing it by January of 2020. You can still find hundreds of comments with insults to hurt my fifis and even peddling the accusations and narrative from these videos. Also want to make something clear because I know this is going to be taken out of context and twisted, as my words have always been by that community. I'm in partial agreement with Ponder and Nezzie. I shouldn't have been deleting any comments, but this notion or claim that I was deleting all comments that weren't too nice or that simply just disagreed with me is a false one. You can go to that video right now and find comments 3 to 4 years ago disagreeing with me that I never deleted. Even comments making fun of me, which I never deleted. My issue wasn't me being made fun of or people disagreeing with me. It was people lying about me or lying about what was in the video.
So he's allowed to ignore people who respond aggressively to him, mind you, on a video where he was already throwing accusations out against a person in order to vilify them.
Throwing accusations on a person to vilify them. The lack of self-awareness these two had while writing this and making these videos is actually fucking insane. To try and play the moral high ground with this, when they spent most of part 1 repeatedly doing that exact same fucking thing to me, throwing accusations around to vilify me.
So, you didn't technically attempt to dox anybody. You were just asking if there was somebody out there who could dox her for you.
And the contradiction will come up a little bit later, but it has to do with him making note that someone out there should be able to answer his question and provide Slimmers' private information to him.
Which is basically him not committing the crime, but asking someone to do it for him. Which doesn't make you innocent, my guy. Also, I'm not surprised these people thought that. You don't ask for someone's personal information on a public fucking forum. That's what we call being suspicious.
Oh yeah, by the way, if anyone has the personal info of that minor who was being harassed by a larger YouTuber, hit me up.
But if people aren't automatically receptive to him being a little shite, well, that's just their fault, and it shows that they're hiding something. That makes sense.
Also, didn't she block you because you were basically harassing her on not only Twitter, but also Instagram?
Slimmers didn't block me, let alone protect her tweets until I asked her for evidence that she told Madame her age. That is why I suggested she was hiding something. Now, in part 1, it took them 10 to 15 minutes to produce quite a complex lie. But part 2 is a little different. They managed to lie within the first 3 minutes.
Which begs the question, if you were so in the right and Slimmers is totally at fault for not responding to you as you wanted, why are your comments deleted? Something to hide, maybe?
Mind you, this was written before his Twitter account was taken down, which it has been, for harassment. So now the comments are gone because his original Twitter account is gone, but originally it was because he had removed them.
I don't know why. It's not like you stopped being a dick at any point in time.
Even though I've already addressed this kind of claim multiple times throughout the series and disproved much of it, I really want to entertain it now to put into perspective how fucking stupid it is and how inconsistent Ponder and Nezzie were with this fucking claim. So overall, they continuously claim throughout both videos that I deleted tweets to hide my actions. In part 1, they stated that I wasn't doing a very good job at it because they could still find leftovers from the conversations. Almost like I wasn't deleting anything to hide anything. Huh. Really, do you think I'm that fucking stupid that in me trying to apparently delete it, I wouldn't delete the conversations acknowledging what I apparently said? Why would I not delete the rest of the replies if I was trying to hide what I originally said, okay? That's the first issue, which makes no fucking sense, and somehow people bought that. Hold on, what's that? Is that a current date? But Ponder, I thought I deleted it. Ponder always does her research. Surely this must be a mistake if I can see it. This can't be. I must be delusional. Or, hear me out, she's a fucking liar. She said it herself. This was written before his Twitter account was taken down, which it has been for harassment. So now the comments are gone because his original Twitter is gone. But originally it was because because he had removed them. They are lying, and they can't weasel their way out of this one. That statement removes any plausible deniability. If the script was written before my account was suspended, they would have known it wasn't deleted, yet they claimed otherwise. I can still find this tweet on the account while it was suspended, and even now that I have the account back, meaning that I never fucking deleted it. She stated I had removed them before my account was suspended. Ponder is claiming she's seen that I had deleted it before my account was suspended, and yet the tweet is still there. She can't fall back on the suspension for why she made this claim because her claim is that I deleted it before my account was even suspended, continuing in his efforts to hide them by deliberately cutting them out of the beginning of his video so that he can make the claim that people were getting on his case for no discernible reason. It's almost like since part 1, Ponder's been heavily pushing the idea that I deleted tweets to hide my actions. I deleted one tweet and explained why, and yet that has been stretched far and wide to misrepresent the events. That wall of text is also really fucking ironic coming from them because her and Nezzie deliberately left out a lot of the information that they had from part 1 so they could even accuse me of half the shit that they did.
You serious?
Like the numerous tweets clarifying I wasn't doxing Slumers and why I deleted the main tweet. They were all made around the same time as the ones they've shown the audience that they screenshotted. But they didn't show those ones because they contradict the narrative they were painting. Like the fact that the information I was looking into that they used to claim I was trying to dox Slumers was released by another FCK member previously, or the fact I publicly gave my reasoning as to why I deleted the tweet that I did, and a screenshot of the tweet.
Nani merely tried to push it off as if it wasn't a big deal, when if you look at all the things pieced together, it could be.
If it happened, but there's nothing to prove that it did. And again, Madame effectively contradicted that happening in her video by making note that she and her friends assumed that Slumers was 18 based on the note about her preparing for college courses, not because she said that she was 18.
First, this is based on the notion I was saying Slumers told Madame she was 18, which I didn't and wasn't saying that. Second, this literally supports what I said in my video.
This is around the time that Madame found out that Slumers was 15. Although she pretended to be someone of age and even said she was going to college.
And third, if you knew this and are going to state this in part 2, why did Nezzie say this in part 1?
On top of that, in my own video, I explained that Slumers is an amateur, not a professional artist, and a 15-year-old wouldn't be aware of professional decorum. So even if it was expected that a young artist explained that the reason they don't have a PayPal is because they're underage, which it's not, I don't know why on earth you're passing off your own expectations as though it's traditionally expected. Why would you expect that young amateur artist who's not used to doing commissions to know that?
It's even funnier when you realize that Madame acknowledges in her response that she knew Summers didn't have a PayPal because she was underage, and the fact that Summers said she would get one next year is what led her to suspect she was lying about it.
I already went over how that's not true in my part 1, but you're contradicting yourselves. In part 1, Nezzie says that Madame said herself that she knew Slumers was a minor because she didn't have a PayPal, and Slumers said she'd get one next year. Then in part 2, Ponder says Madame said that she and her friends assumed Slumers was an adult because of the college. That one is true, and you can find that in Madame's original response video. But what happened to the consistency you were preaching in part 1? Now, because they're claiming that I was saying Slumers told Madame she was 18, let's take a look at what I said in full context.
This is around the time that Madame found out that Slumers was 15, although she pretended to be someone of age and even said she was going to college. This is coming from Madame's side of the story, but Slumers has not claimed it to be untrue. I asked for evidence to prove this wrong, and she has provided none. Nani merely tried to push it off as if it wasn't a big deal, when if you look at all the things pieced together, it could be.
I quite clearly stated that Slumers was pretending to be older. Ponder interprets this as
Nani merely tried to push it off as if it wasn't a big deal, when if you look at all the things pieced together, it could be.
If it happened, but there's nothing to prove that it did. And again, Madame effectively contradicted that happening in her video by making note that she and her friends assumed that Slumers was 18 based on the note about her preparing for college courses, not because she said that she was 18.
Where and when did I remotely state that Slumers told Madame she was 18? I never made that fucking claim, meaning that this is a straw man, which is yet again something else that they previously accused me of.
Way to grasp at straws like your life depends on it. Did you take them from the straw man you presented earlier?
If Ponder and Nezzie thought that I was asking Slumers for evidence that she told Madame she was 18, I wasn't. I was asking Slumers for evidence that she told Madame that she was underage, because at one point that was a claim.
You know, for someone who talks so highly about logic and common sense, how do you not know it's logical and common sense to ask the person making the claim, in this sense Madame, as she's the one claiming that Slumers lied about her age, to provide evidence for it, not the accused? What, you think that when Slumers came out with her claims, we all went to Madame and asked her to provide evidence of them? No, that's stupid.
Madame has also proven to be willing to lie. Whether about her financials or about this child, I wouldn't be surprised if she continued to do so if it gave her the smallest chance to appear as the victim.
This is all predicated on the idea that I was saying Slumers told Madame she was 18 and lied, and I just showed you that I never made that claim. The whole setup to their point that they're trying to make here is non-existent, but I'll respond to it anyways. I wasn't claiming Slumers lied about being 18, and I don't recall Madame claiming that, nor can I find it in her video. Just as Ponder previously said, and what I showed in part 1, Madame and her friends assumed Slumers is 18 because of the college. Madame did imply in her video that Slumers is possibly lying about being 15 from the call-out post, which we all know isn't true because Slumers was in fact 15. The point I was making was that Slumers didn't tell Madame her age. Not that she lied about her age, but that she pretended to be older. I was asking Slumers for evidence that she did tell Madame her age, because at one point that was a claim.
However, if we do take something from there, there is something that could be credible. No. Was it right for Madame to leak her phone number? Absolutely not. I'm aware that some seem to think that Madame didn't know her age at the time, but she did.
I'm sorry, what?
You've been arguing this whole time that Madame didn't know her age!
It isn't professional, it is immature, but it's not actually doxing. This was around the time that Madame found out that Slumers was 15, although she pretended to be someone of age and even said she was going to college.
Which one is it? I guess it's also super logical to contradict a point you made at the beginning in the fucking middle!
That's not a contradiction. I said some people think she didn't know her age at the time, but she did. And the other clip that you played that was prior in my video, also talking about the doxing, I said this is around the time that Madame found out Slumers is 15. Me stating that Madame didn't know Slumers' age until later, until after they fell out, is not contradicting anything. Madame said in her video that her friends told her about Slumers' call-out post, that Slumers was claiming to be 15, and that Slumers was making it about age all of a sudden. Now, Madame did say she didn't believe her, but she was still aware that Slumers was saying that she was 15 when she attempted to dox her. How do we know this? The attempted dox took place after Slumers' call-out post. Call-out post where Slumers mentioned she was 15. Just to prove my point, here's a screenshot of someone returning to Slumers' call-out post to inform her that Madame leaked the phone number. These people couldn't return to the call-out post to inform her of that if the call-out post didn't come before. So the call-out post did come before the doxing, the same call-out post that mentioned her age. Nothing here is a contradiction, and your painful attempt to act as though it is fucking pathetic. The irony gets even better because they're trying to say I contradicted myself right after Ponder in part 2 contradicted Nezzie from part 1.
However, age doesn't exactly matter. Of course, from a legal standpoint it does, but the principle is to never dox anyone.
No shit, titties!
What? Yeah, but she tried to dox a minor. People view that situation as more serious because it's child endangerment. Why are you specifying that it matters from a legal standpoint but that otherwise it doesn't? It clearly matters more that this was a child whom Madame was attempting to dox. I would also like to point out that the beginning of your video was you arguing legal terminology and what art theft was, effectively not the correct terminology to use. Now approaching it from a legal standpoint doesn't matter?
Doxing in and of itself isn't exactly a crime unless it's someone like a police officer. Law is rather inconsistent, hence why so many people who do dox don't get in any legal trouble. Now I know exactly what Ponder's audience is going to say in response, but Ponder told us it was illegal in her collab with Darkness Stone, and yes, she did, but then they go on to vaguely admit that doxing in and of itself isn't illegal, but that it can be seen as other things such as harassment, which can have legal consequences.
The last thing is doxing, which, I mean, it should kind of go without saying.
But I'll say it anyway. It's fucking illegal.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter where you are. Doxing is illegal all across the board. Now, some of you might be wondering, oh, but Ash didn't actually dox Slumers. She only tried to. Doesn't matter, honeys. That's a problem too.
Attempting to dox can get a person into trouble just like succeeding in a dox can. There's a less harsh sentence given as a punishment for it, but the action demonstrates criminal intent and could still be considered harassment, intimidation, invasion of privacy, or even assault in extreme cases.
Now, the main reason I'm even talking about this part specifically and adding to it is because they then proceed just a few seconds later to admit that if it's public information already, it's not doxing.
Doxing can be legally fine in certain situations, provided the information was already publicly available, but the phone number that Ash thought to be Slimers' personal phone number would not be considered already public information.
The reason that's important is because Ponder and Nezzie knew from part 2, which they admitted, that I was looking into information OMGIJ put out in a video, meaning that it's public information. And yet in part 1, they completely omitted that information out because it contradicts the claim that they were making in part 1 to push that I was trying to dox Slimers by cherry picking that screenshot. And yet here in this video, they're admitting that if it's public information, it's not doxing. She's also clarified something similar to this in her Sashley drama videos. She knows what doxing actually is, and that it's private information, identifying private information. And she knows that including this piece of information would contradict the repeated accusation that they make in part 1 of me trying to dox Slimers. And just to add to this, before you say, oh, that's a schizo conspiracy theory of mine, Ponder Sprocket in a video titled Getting the Goat on another Sashley drama, released October 26th of 2019, which, fun fact, is the exact same fucking month that she started working on the 2-part collab on me with Nezziemonster. In this video, she goes over and clarifies what doxing is.
I understand that doxing can be a serious matter, but kids don't know that. Is this all seriously about something that happened before someone was even a preteen? I get that Sashley is a YouTuber, and at this point, she's going to have to recognize that she can't behave like this. But now we're holding her mistakes from when she was 11 over her head, and even then, alleged mistakes. I've spoken with Sashley herself, who has made note that the screenshot could be real, but that she doesn't have any memory of the interaction. She also specified that she doesn't know how to dox, but again, for the sake of complete transparency, I don't think it's really outside of the realm of expectations to surmise that if a child were to get their hands on dox information, they could just post it. That's how doxing works. You find identifiable information about a person that isn't generally found online, and then you post it online, making it public. Anybody who has personal information about a person can do it, so I don't think it's unreasonable to point out that if a 12-year-old or 13-year-old had that information, they could totally be capable of posting it. But another problem, we can't actually tell if Sashley had that information correct or whether or not she released it. This is why, when asking Melody for screenshots that proved the allegations, I asked for a screenshot that showcased Sashley posting the docs. We have screenshots of people referencing the docs, so I don't think it would be too much of a stretch to accept that the docs happened, although it should also be pointed out that the screenshots of Susan's emails that Melody sent me also do not prove that the docs happened, just that the emails were written. I'm just giving the case the benefit of the doubt, but we don't have anything concrete about who did it. If there was a screenshot, perhaps, of Sashley giving the docs information to someone who then went on to make a video, or she made a video about it, that would at least showcase involvement. The most that this screenshot can prove is that Sashley was compiling information on somebody. You'll notice there's absolutely no mention of who that somebody is. Could it have been Susan? Yes, it very well could have, and I can't blame people for thinking that. But could it have been someone else? Yes, it very well could have. I don't think it's unreasonable for people to look at a screenshot like this and assume that it must be talking about Susan because it's talking specifically about a name, a face, and a school, and two of those things are what Sashley was accused of leaking of Susan. I do, however, think it's unreasonable to automatically assume that this is evidence of the crime, especially when even Melody, the person who gathered the screenshots from those who had it, gave 3 potential time frames as to when this conversation happened. And there's yet another problem with the nature of the screenshot itself. Melody got the screenshot from Susan, but Susan herself apparently doesn't know who originally took the screenshot nor who sent it to her, meaning that we have absolutely no means of confirming whether this screenshot even comes from a trustworthy source. This whole thing could be faked, but because nobody knows where it came from nor who took it, we can't check. You can't just use screenshots if you don't know where they come from, because you can't be sure if it actually applies to what you're using it for. Is there the possibility that Sashley doxed Susan? Of course there is. I'm not going to deny that. But does this prove that she did it? No, it doesn't. And even then, 11-year-old! Frankly, until there is actual proof that she did it, it's only speculation, and speculation has the potential to be wrong. We could assume that this means that Sashley did it and blame her for it, and if we were right, that means we will be punishing someone who did something wrong when they were 11, and no, I'm not gonna stop reiterating that because it's stupid and I want to get that across. But if we were wrong, it would mean we were punishing an innocent party. And there is the possibility that this accusation was wrong because the accusation of Sashley doxing Susan's face appears to have been wrong. When I asked about the doxing of Susan's face, Melody claimed that Sashley doxed Susan's face by turning a picture of her face into an emoji. When I asked where that picture came from, Melody told me that one of Susan's friends posted the picture online for Sashley to find, which would mean that Sashley didn't dox Susan. The alleged friend did. So I went back to the source on the matter. I asked Sashley where the image came from. According to Sashley, she got the image from a friend who potentially is not on good terms with Susan, and that person supposedly got it directly from Susan herself. I pressured further on the matter, and according to Sashley, the person in question allegedly got the image of Susan's face either from her community tab or Discord server, although it has also been to light that they might have screenshotted it and put it on their own community tab or Discord server, which, if true, would actually mean that Susan either doxed her own face or this other friend doxed her face. Both the scenario presented by Sashley and the scenario presented by Melody would mean that Sashley was not the one who doxed Susan's face.
So in this Sashley drama video, she's going over this photo, and this photo being leaked, and that it was doxing. And Ponder herself clarifies that it wasn't doxing because Sashley didn't publicize the photo of Susan's face. Susan's friend did, which would mean that Susan's friend did the doxing. So if we take this and compare it to the situation with me and the information James released, that would mean I didn't do the doxing, James did. And yet for some reason, Ponder insisted that I was still going to use this information that was already fucking publicized to dox Slamers, which wouldn't be possible because it was already publicized by James. So not only did she know what doxing was, when she was working on the video on me, and that public information wasn't fucking doxing, but she outright contradicted her own fucking logic in this video just to further accuse me of doxing. But remember, there's no dishonesty at play, folks. That's just me framing it that way. Of course, the irony and hypocrisy doesn't stop here, and you'll find out exactly what I mean later. I don't want to spoil it for you, so just wait a little bit, okay? Wait a little bit. It's going to come up again. I promise you. You are going to absolutely fucking enjoy it. It's an internet taboo, but you're not necessarily breaking the law. Endangering a minor would be breaking the law, but I'll get into that in just a second. Second, no. I said it could have been credit theft or plagiarism, but Madame never attempted to claim she made the art. In the interview and in her original video, she made it pretty clear and pretty obvious that Slamers made the artwork. I never said that it was, just that it could be, but wasn't.
Why? This seems like a much more serious section of the situation than people potentially using the wrong descriptor.
Also, way to admit that Madame did something illegal, but still put her and Slimmers on an equal standing in terms of wrongdoing, despite that, again, Slimmers did the ultimate sin of putting a comment in the wrong place and deciding to vent on a private Instagram account.
The only thing I said was from a legal standpoint, her age could matter. I never admitted in the video that Madame did something illegal. She did scam people out of money. That is illegal, and nothing was done about that to my knowledge. Big shock, I know. It's almost like accountability on the internet is mostly a joke, because you people are inconsistent with it. Now, doxing isn't necessarily illegal unless it's law enforcement or something of that nature. Endangering a minor, possibly, but you would have to prove how Slamers was in danger, especially considering the fact it was not a real phone number tied to any name, and she changed it in a matter of 5 seconds. She said that right here. Was it wrong of Madame to try and dox her? Yes. Is pointing out how the attempt failed or that the number was fake somehow magically defending Madame? No.
Doesn't matter if the number's fake.
But you said earlier that because the number was fake, then that means it wasn't technically a dox, and now you're saying that it doesn't matter that it was fake and condemning Madame? I don't mind that this is what you now think, or that you changed your mind. What I mind is that you did it all in the same video, 2 minutes apart!
The number being fake doesn't mean people can't be upset about the attempt. That's why I was saying it didn't matter for being upset or condemning it. Here's me saying this same exact fucking thing in the first 2 minutes of my Slamers video.
There's nothing that can excuse for her attempting to dox her, but I am going to tell you why.
Your brain can't comprehend that while it wasn't doxing because the number wasn't private, people can still be upset about it without saying she was doxed. You do realize that is possible, right? To be upset and condemn the attempt without saying it successfully happened. I can condemn and criticize someone for trying to rob someone without claiming that they actually robbed them. The next clip is a lengthy one, 6 minutes, but if I'm going to be fair and honest, I do need to show it to you.
It doesn't matter how old they are or how professional or unprofessional they seem to be. However, with the screenshots I have available to you all, This might explain why Madam doxed her. Example screenshot A. Here it says directly, I don't know what else is worse, art theft or pressure. I saw her comment reply. I don't think attacking won't make her listen, but there's nothing else we can do but that. So you guys can comment, I don't mind, but what she's doing is not allowed. Here she's giving permission for cancel culture to attack Madam, which then led to the dox.
Are you sure about that?
Prove it. No, seriously, prove it. If you're so sure that these are the events that took place and in the order that they took place, prove it. Otherwise, you're throwing out a claim with no evidence.
I'm more inclined to believe this happened after, due to it saying, but what she's doing is not okay.
Now, some of you may be thinking, well, he hasn't provided a time frame when this was uploaded, so there's no way to prove his claim wrong. Wanna see a magic trick? Firstly, let's look at when everything started going down. Slammers gave Madame the avatar stills to use on September 9th, although she was not online to accept them until September 10th, which is the same day Madame's 50,000 subscriber video went up. Slammers contacted Madame about credit on the 11th, and this is when Madame got the comment from Nightfish.
Nani's video on Madame came out on September 14th, and in that video she showed a screenshot of Slammers' Instagram account which contained the Madame period Instagram story that Akumu is bringing up here. In that video, she also talked about Madame's doxing of Slammers.
Additionally, the user Cyan Dreamer on Twitter was posting a thread about the situation, and on September 12th at 6:43 p.m., they posted a screenshot showcasing Madame attempting to dox Slammers, meaning the latest the dox could have happened was 6:40 p.m. on September 12th, and the earliest is after 5 p.m. on the 11th.
Here's where my role as the wild card comes into play. The foreign factor, the bootleg Uno reverse card that was definitely not made in the US. Well, kinda, sorta. It's difficult. You see, I live in Japan, and I'm a day ahead of Ponder and all of you, a thing that has come up quite often in the making of this. And Instagram doesn't give you a direct time when stories are posted. It just says the week. It'll say 1 week, 1 week, 1 week, all the way up until it says 2 weeks with no in between. This means we can tell when a new week starts, which, when it first happens, gives us a direct timeline for how old the post is, at least in terms of days.
Nezzie lives in a timeline.
As we all know, Japan is an alternate reality from the US and Canada.
1 day ahead of myself. At the time of scripting this, the Madame Instagram post that Akumu is showcasing here showed up as having been posted 3 weeks ago for me on October 8th.
And it read 4 weeks for me on October 9th, which means it was made between the 11th and the 12th.
Unfortunately, within the nebulous and uncertain time frame for when the attempted dox happened.
Oh, but we can get more exact than that.
Akumu doesn't have access to when this slide was posted on Instagram, just an approximation in the form of 1 week. Only one person would have that access. Slammers. So I asked Slammers about it. Incidentally, I was not a dick when I did it.
Slammers gave us this screenshot, which, because she was the owner of the post, showed the exact date and time it was posted, that being 8:20 a.m. on September 12th. Still within the attempted dox time frame. Akumu was close. But because these events, the order of which is very important, happen on the same day, the exact time of when they each happen needs to be known.
So now it's a matter of figuring out when the dox happened.
The problem with trying to figure that out is that only Madame would have access to the original attempted doxing slides and the time they were posted. And it's not exactly like we can go and ask her for them, so we turn to the next best thing.
Slammers gave me access to the original call-out post on Madame. Within that archive post was a series of very helpful comments left by the exceptionally helpful, without even knowing it, Cutie Pie Champion Mahina.
The reason it was a series of comments was because Champion Mahina was commenting in response to Madame's Instagram story updates, which means that these comments could be used to pinpoint an even more approximate time for when the dox happened.
Which happens to be exactly what I did. I opened the original story on my phone and changed the date to the 22nd of January because, as of doing this, it is currently the 18th. It read 18 weeks. I changed it to the 23rd of January. It read 19 weeks. Okay, 23rd of January, 3:17 a.m., 18 weeks. 23rd of January, 6:20 a.m., 19 weeks. 23rd of January, 4:25 a.m., 18 weeks. 4:37 a.m., 18 weeks. 4:42 a.m., 18 weeks. 4:47 a.m., 18 weeks. 4:49 a.m., 19 weeks. Bingo! The comments were left between 4:47 and 4:49 a.m. on September 12th.
which means that the dox happened before 4:48 a.m. on the 12th of September. Even taking into consideration that Ponder is 1 hour ahead of Slimmers in terms of time zones, that means that for Slimmers it happened around 3:48 a.m. And she didn't post the slide Akumu is bringing up until 8:20 a.m., which means that it couldn't have been the reason for Madame to dox Slimmers, because it wasn't even posted until something like 4 hours after the dox even happened. And side note, that means Madame posted it at 3 or 4 in the morning, apparently with nothing better to do at that time than post a child's contact number. That's like really sad.
You didn't provide us any materials to work with, and we still built you a fucking flame-spitting birdhouse with an indoor pool.
With a side of salt from the future. And before we hear anything about, well, that's from her call-out post on Madame, I was talking about her stories. Why would it be expected for Slimmers to further clarify in her stories that Madame did indeed fix the credit, if not only the evidence for the claim as well as the acknowledgement that she fixed the credit was in that call-out post, but the stories were also made in response to that call-out post? The call-out post already specified that Madame fixed the credit after forgetting to give it before removing it entirely on purpose. Slimmers does not need to specify the same thing over and over and over and over again if she has already made this information freely known in the post that makes the claim about what Madame did in the first place. The people who are reading the stories would need to read the call-out post to understand the situation, and that is where the information should be, not the stories where she's answering questions people are asking in response to that post.
So no, Akumu, those screenshots do not explain why Madame attempted to dox Slimmers. They didn't even exist at the time she tried to do it.
A rather long clip, but if I didn't leave it in, people no doubt would have accused me of intentionally leaving it out. I was in fact wrong on my timeline. My timeline listed the story where Slimmers condoned the people bitching about credit in Madame's comments, and then Madame's attempted doxing taking place. I was wrong, and it was actually the other way around. Those 6 minutes are the absolute best part of both videos. It's really the only time that Ponder in these two videos remotely hold up to the trust and hope that her community and audience have in them, where she remotely lives up to her reputation. And yet it's so short-lived.
Additionally, let's take a closer look at that screenshot.
Does it help to comment and pressure her to credit you? Or would that make it worse?
I don't know what else is worse, art theft or pressuring. I saw her comment reply. I don't think attacking won't make her listen, but there's nothing else we can do but do that. So you guys can comment, I don't mind, but what she's doing is not allowed.
Let's first start off with the fact that we think Slimmers meant I don't think attacking will make her listen, not won't, because that wording doesn't make any sense.
Keep in mind at this point, the attempted dox and harassment had already occurred. Slimmers is also 15, and I know you hate the age thing, but she probably didn't know what to do.
Yes, because despite what some people in Madame's server seem to think, age is an excuse. A 15-year-old doesn't have as much developmental maturity or life experience as a 19-year-old, particularly because a 15-year-old is only a third of the way through puberty and a 19-year-old is reaching the end.
She isn't old enough or experienced enough to handle a situation like this, let alone something of this size and scale. Even if you want to argue that Slimmers had a big audience and therefore should be used to this attention, she isn't used to this much negative attention.
Negative attention that was an attempted directed harassment campaign.
If I were her age, I honestly wouldn't know how to handle a person with 3 times my following on a more popular platform attacking me either. It's possible that she just wants this situation to end and is trying to detach herself from this while recognizing that Madame is still majorly in the wrong. Heck, you could argue that she knows that her audience won't listen to her regardless and is simply choosing to detach herself from that.
I would like to argue, on the other hand, that unlike what Akumu is claiming, Slimmers is not actually trying to direct harassment towards Madame. Slimmers makes note within the post that she feels that the only way to get Madame to stop using the art is to pressure her into stopping via comments, indicating that she's doing something wrong. But she also ends off by stating that what Madame is doing is not allowed. You read this as exclusively talking about the fact that Madame using Slimmers' art without paying for it is wrong, but it could be read as all of what Madame is doing is not allowed, which would include attempted doxing and directed harassment, meaning that Slimmers is not condoning or encouraging that behavior.
Granted, it's a possibility. Just like her potentially posting something that could be perceived as what you're claiming, it could also just be badly worded. Again, it's a possibility. as well as what you're claiming.
So that's 3 different possibilities to consider and no proof for each because this is based on interpretation of a 15-year-old's wording. In case you hadn't figured out from us deconstructing your asinine pedantic complaint against people using the term art theft, because the term you try to replace it with is basically just a synonym, yeah, teenagers don't often word things the best. Oh, but we do at least have solid proof that your accompanying accusation that this point was the inciting reason for the attempted dox was bullshit.
Gee, it seems like both you and Slimmers don't know what the fuck you're doing half the time. Like most teenagers.
Oh, so we're resorting to making excuses. While I was wrong about when she said it, and that it didn't result in the attempted doxing, I was not wrong about what she said. First, you contradicted the age excuse. A 15-year-old can't handle an attempted directed harassment campaign. Okay, sure. But I, at 16, could handle a directed slander campaign from your community. Because that makes so much fucking sense. Yes, her post easily could be saying that the doxing as well isn't allowed. Because as you've proven, my timeline was wrong about the 2 events. However, that doesn't change the fact she's still telling people to continue commenting. I don't think attacking her will make her listen, but there's nothing else we can do but that. Slimmers called it an attack, just as I went on to do in reference to her, which you got onto me for. So you guys can comment, I don't mind. Her trying to distance herself or separate herself, her maybe saying the doxing isn't allowed, does not change the fact she's calling it an attack, that they can do nothing else but that, and that they can comment. She is condoning it to continue. You know it, and I know it. Quit making bullshit excuses. This is the double standard I was talking about. Your community got onto Madame for telling her audience to go at Slimmers. You said that it was bad and wrong. That's a perfectly normal and agreeable take. I am not disagreeing with it. Slimmers then tells people to continue going at Madame, also calling it an attack, and you all make excuses for it. Then to prove my point, I told people to go attack Slimmers when I had no fucking audience, and that's bad and you all bitch about it. The point is, your community flip-flopped. The reason I told people to go at Slimmers was because I knew the community would bitch about it and would call me a harasser and condemn me for it. That in and of itself proved the double standard you all have been in denial about. To the art community that loves to say that Slimmers was just a 15-year-old, that she was just responding and retaliating to what Madame was doing, and the attempted doxing, so that somehow means her condoning it is okay, despite you all previously getting onto Madame for condoning her audience to go after Slimmers, and then getting onto me for condoning my non-existent audience to go after Slimmers. I'll ignore your hypocrisy there, and I'll genuinely hear you out. If Slimmers being 15 and condoning her followers to attack in retaliation to Madame condoning her audience to what Madame was saying about her, like lying, and Madame trying to dox her, why did none of you bring this same thing up when the FCK were fucking with me all throughout 2020? For example, when Fuchsia Butter made his video on me where he complained about Madame verbally abusing Slimmers, and then in that same video told me to suck his pink-pubed dick, that I was a spineless, honorless shit puppet that had a cum-guzzling ego. These are actual things he said in that video that amassed thousands of views. Nezzie and Ponder knew about it because Nezzie was in the FCK server where it was shared and talked about with Nezzie and many of the others, and Ponder commented on Foxen's video containing just some of it. Fuchsia Butter made a video lying about me, falsely accusing me, and making fun of me with weird sexual related jokes while I was 16. He knew I was 16 too. I didn't see any of you all whip out this excuse that I was just a 16-year-old retaliating against people lying about me and sending their audience after me, which he did at the end of the video.
Now comes the part where I say blah blah blah, don't go harass this person, blah blah, but that doesn't do anything. You guys know that doesn't do anything. I wanted to call out this piece of shit, but if you're gonna go do anything, try to think about what you say. It shouldn't be too hard to think with a higher IQ than this guy. Oh, and one last thing, Akumu. Pay attention in school.
No, that's right. You told yourselves I harassed him, and then he played victim, and you all went to repeat it. How about August and September of 2020? Nezzie made a sexual harassment accusation against a minor, and I gave her the evidence to disprove it. She then only gave 2 out of the 16 screenshots I gave her to Madlibs so that Madlibs could repeat the accusation in her video. Then in January of 2021, Nezzie made a twit-longer apology where she lied and said that I withheld the evidence from her, when it was Nezzie who only gave Madlibs 2 screenshots. If I didn't give Nezzie any evidence, how did she give Madlibs 2 out of the 16 screenshots? And how did those 2 screenshots end up in Madlibs' video? Yet you all said I harassed Nezzie for making fun of her for falsely accusing a minor of sexual harassment. No excuse that I was just a 16-year-old retaliating against someone who had a larger platform and a friend group that was lying about me for a year. No. Poor Nezzie. How about Madlib's big video where they play victim to me making fun of their friend group for what they were doing to me and others? I have an entire series documenting what they did. I thought the art community said false accusations about a minor, lies about a minor, and vilifying a minor were bad. Yet it's perfectly fine when your favorite people do it. When they did it. No Ponder. No Hopeless Peaches, no Nani. Not a single one of your favorite art YouTubers who love to play Captain Kirk to make themselves look better came swooping in to say something about what they were doing. All three of those people knew, by the way. Not a single one of them talked about it. And then when I talked about it in my videos to inform my following and your fucking community, many of you in response tried to paint the FCK as victims. In fact, many of you still whine about the fact that I'm talking about it. But you always leave out what they did. That I harassed poor Nezzie and Fuchsia Butter with my mean tweets. I didn't see any of you whip out this excuse that I was just a kid retaliating to people who lied about it and falsely accused me and people around me to collectively hundreds of thousands of people. Even used photoshopped evidence to make me look worse and a lot more. So what's your community's excuse? What made it different? That I don't share your politics? That I say mean things? That I had to continuously make Twitter accounts because your community kept mass reporting them and then lied and said I was making accounts to evade your stupid fucking blocks? But I'm the one with the inflated sense of self. That you don't like me? So suddenly your rule about lies, false accusations, and vilifying a minor is voided. So no, I don't take your excuse that Slimmers being 15 magically makes it okay or different, because you're not consistent with it.
Am I saying Madam shouldn't go unpunished over doxing? No, absolutely not. What I am saying, what the purpose of this video is saying, what it is to point out Slimmers is not as innocent as you all like to put it.
This whole segment is pointless now because this segment is based on the belief that the screenshot you provided happened before the dox, but it didn't.
Yep.
So now this situation is even more pointless than it was before!
This is a massive leap in mental gymnastics. Me being wrong on the order of events and when Slimmers condone for them to continue doesn't mean I'm wrong about her condoning it. I was wrong about it resulting in the doxing, but I was not wrong about it taking place.
On top of that, he acknowledges that Madame deserves to face consequences for what she did, yet he is specifically going after the person that pointed out one of her problems that led to everybody recognizing she was kind of a garbage person, and who was then a victim of Madame's dox attempt as a result, which was not prompted by the screenshot you claim prompted it. So Madame is supposed to face consequences, but you are, as you say, somewhere in this fucking video, I can't remember at this point, attempting to even the scale by harassing Slimmers. But that doesn't make any sense. Why are you evening the scale if the offenses were not the same? Why do you somehow think that pointing out that a person has done something illegal and potentially making a mistake while doing so deserves the same backlash as committing those illegal offenses?
I don't know if you're intentionally missing the point or if you're just that fucking dense, but I'm referring to the condoning of their audiences to go at each other. People got onto Madame's case for that. People make excuses for Slimmers doing it. People then got onto me for it. That sequence of events in and of itself proves that there's a double standard.
Wrongs don't make a right, ZZ. You're 22 and apparently don't know this.
But it wasn't 2 wrongs don't make a right. It was 6, 10, 5 wrongs versus 1.
When I said 2 wrongs, I was referring to them both sending their audiences at each other. I'm not going to keep repeating myself on that, so on to the next point that's worth responding to.
So here's the timeline. Slimmers makes fan art, although she changed her story. Let's go with the one she told Nani, which furthers our point. Madam contacts her wanting to do business and asks prices. Slimmers replies that she doesn't have PayPal, but didn't tell her why.
Because it was in her bio, according to you.
You even stated that Madame knew her age the whole time. So again, which is it?
This is repetition of old and incorrect points. 1, I said she put it in her bio and then she removed it. 2, I never said Madame always knew her age. I said Madame wasn't always aware of her age. In fact, I specifically provided when Madame found out she was 15, or at the very least, when Slimmers revealed that she was 15 via the call-out post. You literally played that clip earlier in this same fucking video.
However, if we do take something from there, there is something that could be credible. No. Was it right for Madam to leak her phone number? Absolutely not. I'm aware that some seem to think that Madam didn't know her age at the time.
This is nothing but a shit show of you desperately trying to force it to be some kind of inconsistency or contradiction when it isn't. Me stating she learned of her age and knew of her age when she attempted to dox is not me stating Madame always knew her age the entire time.
They work out the arrangement consisting of credit and description and at some point a vocal shout out. This was not a legal agreement.
Yeah, we'll come back to that claim. If you're taking a hint as to how all of Akumu's other points have worked out, then you know how this one is going to work out.
Madam posts her first video. Slimmers then comments in the YouTube section asking for credit instead of contacting her through her phone number, private Discord, or even Instagram. After some time, Slimmers vents about it, and then Madam sees the comment. which leads us here.
What? He's got the timeline wrong again. The Instagram post where Slimmers vented about not receiving credit was posted before Slimmers and Madame sorted everything out, not after. It wouldn't even make sense for Slimmers to have posted it after Madame credited her, because the original story said, "Been working for Madame lately, I haven't gotten credit in the description though, but it's okay, this is exciting." Or do you want to, I don't know, prove that our understanding of the timeline is wrong with evidence? Nope. Yeah, that's about what I figured.
I don't know how you watch that clip and then go completely way off the deep end, not even addressing what I actually said in the clip. So I'm going to replay what I said.
Madame posts her first video, Slimmers then comments in the YouTube section, asking for credit instead of contacting her through her phone number, private Discord, or even Instagram. After some time, Slimmers vents about it, and then Madame sees the comment, which leads us here.
What? He's got the timeline wrong again.
Not once in that clip did I claim the vent post was made after they worked it out. I didn't even mention Madame and Slimmers working it out in that fucking clip, so that whole tangent is meaningless. This is what people think is a good video, by the way. Two individuals responding to something I didn't even fucking claim, that wasn't even remotely said. The two of them are wrong about what I got wrong, so I'll do their job for them. What I did get wrong here is that Slimmers made the vent post first, and then waited. She said so in the interview with Nani.
She posted like 2 videos in a few weeks, and it's just my stuff wasn't credited. And I was like, okay, well maybe she will credit like later on today. So I posted on my story, on my spam account, because on my art account I see it as I want to post art most of the time, and then my spam account is something I express my real feelings to, kind of like a vent account. Don't mind the stupid typo, I did a typo on that one, and it's kind of embarrassing because I sound like a barbarian. But I was excited, I was like, still didn't get credit though, but it's okay, this is exciting. But I said the is exciting. And so I guess my friend saw it. I don't know where the comment is still, which I guess she replied and said, hey, my friend Slimmers, so I was waiting for credit. It's been like 2 days or so, and I was like, hey, that's weird, like why am I not credited? So it take her like a while to DM back. Like it sometimes will take her a day or so to reply back. So it was stupid of me to freaking comment it anyway, but I did because like at that moment I was getting a little bit upset. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna comment this, and I think it was stupid.
Where Madame initially fixed the credit and even shows Slimmers.
I'm sorry, what? Akumu, you told us earlier that everyone's understanding of the fact that Madame originally didn't give credit was wrong. Now you're stating that she fixed the credit. She wouldn't have to fix the credit if she hadn't failed to give credit in the first place.
Don't you see, Ponder? You're simply ignorant. Only a great intellectual like Akumu could notice the fucking obvious.
Oh god, I feel ignorant. It's too stupid. Nezzie, slap me and make sure I'm in the proper timeline.
Are you monetized? Because YouTube may not be able to handle that kind of kinkiness.
The fuck?
This interjection is entirely pointless because her claim about what I previously said has no basis in truth. She said something I didn't even say and then said it was wrong. And if you haven't caught on by now, that's most of this video. I previously went over the same thing, that Madame forgot the credit, then added the credit, and then removed it. Ponder is conflating me going over the common misconceptions of that drama, one of them being the idea that Madame never gave Slimmers credit. There was 2 things I said regarding that. First, that there was no evidence that Madame didn't credit intentionally, that the first time was an accident.
So far we have no evidence pointing to Madame not giving credit intentionally. However, we do have some evidence pointing to it being an accident.
Second, I went over how the credit wasn't there first, then was put there, and Slimmers was happy.
So she mentioned that she forgot.
Most that are attacking Madame and defending Slimmers seem to think Madame never gave credit. That it's not entirely accurate. Here are Madame's screenshots, along with Slimmers, that shows evidence that she initially, when the issue first occurred, fixed it. Here we can clearly see the artist is happy now.
This is just her again trying to insinuate or push that I'm contradicting myself for the 3rd fucking time when there isn't one.
However, she had it blurred in her video to be an asset. Slimmers did provide this right here, and she even said this in Nani's video, but if you go through her stories talking about the issue, as I have, I had to use an alt, but if you go through her stories telling these people what happened, she does not bring up the fact that Madame initially fixed it. Why didn't you bring that up? Maybe that would have not led to the mob, and maybe some kind of arrangement could have talked out, but instead, no, you don't mention it.
Minus the fact that that in Nani's video, Slimmers read out the DMs between herself and Madame that showcases that Madame didn't give credit and then she fixed it.
You literally showed the part of Nani's video where she read it out, and even then you watched the video. So you watched it, edited it, then re-watched for final touches, and didn't notice that?
She's like, that of course credit, which was the plan, but okay, I got you. And I said, I mean credit in the description of your videos. Then she said, yeah, that's the plan. I said, I got you. Boom, done. Just DM me because I stopped reading the comments after 48 hours. So I was like, thank you, that's all I wanted, not hating.
Or is this exclusively about the Instagram stories made within the first 2 days when the drama was first exploding? Do you really want to make that claim, Akumu? Really? For one thing, despite claiming that you went over all of Slimmers' Instagram stories from that time and that she never specified this information, why would you not show us the Instagram stories in question? You've supposedly gone over them and seen them, we haven't. You're making a claim without bringing up the post that you're directly making a claim about, and no, the one slide you brought up doesn't count as sufficient evidence because not only were there something like 4 related stories, the original call-out post, the vent post on her private account which turned into a post answering questions on the matter, and yes, this is where Akumu's screenshot is from, a post providing more evidence and another question post. The story your single screenshot is from contains at least 18 other slides, none of which you use to showcase or prove your claim. You do not get to show one slide that doesn't contain a certain piece of information and use it to make the claim that every other related and unrelated slide from that story and all of the others also do not contain that information. So why in the actual hell would we believe anything you have to say? For another thing, you claim that Slimmers never made an effort to make this information known, but I can literally find a comment from her original call-out post where someone was commenting clearly under the misunderstanding that Madame never credits artists, and Slimmers corrected them. So it's not like she's actively trying to hide this information like it's being dishonestly presented here. And I say dishonestly presented because, again, Akumu has provided nothing except one screenshot.
I've seen this one, this is a classic.
To make a claim that spreads across almost 50. Akumu, you said that you went over her Instagram post. Did you not check the comments? Did you even check the Instagram story? Because I did. And I saw things. Yeah, saving that one for later.
My words were, if you go through her stories telling these people what happened, she does not bring up the fact that Madame initially fixed it. And they bring up Nani's video when I wasn't talking about Nani's video. I was very clearly talking about Slimmers' story named Madame, period. Then Ponder demands I show evidence of Slimmers not showing something, and then she strangely clings onto the fact Slimmers brought it up in the comments. Bringing it up in one fucking reply to someone is not the same as putting it in the post. And if it was in the post, prove me wrong. If you have evidence showing that she did mention it in the story, would it not be best to show it now, rather than drag your bore of a video out any further? You demanded I show evidence for this claim, that I need to, then suggested you have evidence to the contrary, and decide you're not gonna share it. When does your hypocrisy end? This is just stringing the audience along. Because newsflash, Ponder waits until the last 15 fucking minutes of the video to actually produce evidence for her claim.
Hey, Akumu, guy who said that he looked over Slimmers' Instagram and, in particular, the story where she made the claim against Madame. Yeah, you missed this part. Yeah, shock to nobody, I have the entire story. This screenshot, if you read it, is the conversation between Madame and Slimmers indicating that Madame was correcting the mistake. This same section of conversation that she read off in Nani's video, which you acknowledge was her making note of the information. So Slimmers presenting the same information in her original Instagram story doesn't count as her making this information publicly available. The story indicates that there was a problem, that Slimmers commented, they talked it out, both apologized, and everything was made good. She even indicates in the description of the Instagram story that the situation had been fixed. It's right there.
Instead of providing evidence then and there to disprove it, she waits until the end to prove me wrong. I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong, and I was wrong there, but don't talk about me needing to show evidence in the moment when you can't even provide that same fucking courtesy.
I kind of feel like you did that on purpose, considering any time someone is labeled an art thief in the art community, mobs appear.
What is he trying to say?
I get it. He's making the same claim that Madame did, essentially. That being that Slimmers was initially trying to get people to mob against Madame, and that's why she didn't tell everyone right away that Madame had fixed the credit. Except just like Madame's claim, this one doesn't make any sense.
Let me just cancel this girl by waiting for her to chance not do this thing that she says is common sense to do and then tell her that she didn't do it so that she can fix it before I tell everyone she didn't do it. My plan is flawless.
I think your plan is wrong.
Not scientifically possible.
Akumu, if Slimers' original goal was to incite people against Madame because she was using the artwork without credit, why would Slimers then tell Madame that she forgot to give credit? That would just give Madame the opportunity to fix that lack of credit, which she did, which would throw a knife into Slimers' plan. Because then, assuming Slimers was trying to send people to attack Madame, everyone who went to Madame's video and checked the description would see that Slimers was lying.
Madame and Slimers' conversation also occurred on September 11th, 2019, and it occurs within the span of an hour after the 11 o'clock mark. Madame accuses Slimers of sending people to attack her at 4:17 p.m. There is no telling what Slimers was doing between those 5 hours. Remember, she is 15. You being 16, I would have hoped that you'd understand that you both have responsibilities aside from your phones. She may not have had time to correct it.
That's not what I was suggesting at all. The idea that Slimers was always intending to cancel Madame by waiting until Madame didn't credit her was purely Madame's whole fucking conspiracy, and a really ridiculous one at that. So you two are almost right. If Slimers really was planning that, why would she tell Madame that she didn't credit her? What I was suggesting was that she left it out of it to rile up a mob. Not that she always intended to do so. To be clear, I was wrong. She did talk about it in the Madame story. I was wrong about that, but they're twisting what I was suggesting.
As previously, we went over how she condoned cancel culture. Anyone who condones it, why? First off, that's my question. Why would you condone it at all?
I condone it in instances where people are scamming their audience out of money by claiming that they're suing the YouTube community punching bag, and when that's brought to light from a single artist speaking up and shining a light on a past of problematic behavior.
I condone it when this person has a history of being shitty towards multiple artists because I want to protect other artists who can't resist her 2-for-1 exposure deal.
Plus, you know, cancel Onision.
Oh yeah, cancel Onision.
This is what I'm talking about, and what I was talking about before. The art community's ridiculous and inconsistent feeling to play Captain Kirk in everything. Internet justice fighters fighting that good fight, telling you, the audience, that they want to call out problematic behavior, and that they want to protect other artists. It's really just a pitch to sell themselves to you, or at least the gullible and like-minded internet justice fighters that they've accumulated through other crusades. Take that cute little statement about Slimers shining a light on problematic behavior. I'm willing to bet that's the rationale that they tell themselves and you all anytime they cover any individual. Yet none of them spoke about what the FCK did to me. Not a single one of them covered a single one of their antics. An adult lying about and falsely accusing a minor is wrong to do, and yet from that same community, a group of mostly adults lied about and falsely accused me. Not just for a month, because that's what happened with Slimers. It was September. They did it for a year, and none of them shined any light on that problematic behavior. Or is it only problematic when these actions and behaviors are done by the people they don't like? Over the years, they've made it very clear that it's the latter. If you think that I'm wrong about this community and the facade that they put onto the public and the audience to get people to like them, then how about this? Nezziemonster's little statement just moments ago about how she wants to protect other artists.
I condone it when this person has a history of being shitty towards multiple artists because I want to protect other artists who can't resist her 2-for-1 exposure deal.
That being her reasoning for talking about this Madame and Slimers shit back in 2020. But where was that sentiment to protect other artists when Slimers was in the FCK server, a server that Nezziemonster was also in, where Slimers was being shown porn, pushed to draw porn, and there was a chat dedicated to showing her porn off, along with numerous other minors and artists in particular that were in this server. Where did that sentiment go? Nezziemonster didn't say a fucking thing until Ben the Looney threatened the group. And then 3 days later, Nezziemonster told Toasty Vanilla to delete the chat. But she wants to protect other artists though.
I condone some hate to the artist to even the scale. I did not ever attempt or mention Slimers should be cancelled.
That's not how that works. Plus, everyone who commented on this said don't send hate, and we can't control our audience.
Oh yeah, that's so much better. I directed hate towards a 15-year-old just like Madame did. You know, the thing that everyone is pissed at her for, because that's so much better. Oh, and let's not forget that you've been doing it based on an extreme misunderstanding not only of the timeline, but also of basically all of the rest of the events.
Not to mention again, you are trying to put a small, single mistake on the same level as a criminal act and a past behavior of threatening minors into silence. Because as we all know, a good old-fashioned stabbing is just as bad as accidentally farting in an elevator.
And,
Akumu, if you believe that people are attempting to cancel Madame and that they are doing so through this harassment that's going on, and you are, of your own admittance, trying to even the scale by delivering the same levels of harassment to Slimmers, that would mean that you are attempting the same thing with Slimmers. Cancel culture is effectively a means of harassing a person or ruining their reputation enough that their current, usually online occupation is no longer viable, which is what you are doing with Slimmers. That is what evening the scale means. It doesn't suddenly change if only one person is doing the harassment, especially if that one person is indicating that they are attempting to make the level of harassment equal with that which is intended to cancel someone. Do not pretend like you are somehow more high and mighty because you are a single person responding to a non-coordinated quote-unquote attack on Madame by then coordinating an attack against Slimmers. And with this video encouraging other people to do the very same, you are no better than the very people you are claiming to be the problem.
Yes, it is hypocrisy. Thank you. For you to call me a hypocrite doing exactly what Madame and Slimmers did. People I'm judging, right? That would mean all three of us did the same thing. So why is it you condemned Madame for it? Just a few minutes ago made several excuses for Slimmers doing it, and then condemned me for it. It's almost like there's a double standard or something. I chose my words specifically, and repeatedly used attack throughout my video for a reason. Because Slimmers used that same word when condoning it in her story. I also want to make something else clear, because I know the art-tards are very, very, very fucking slow, so I need to make this as crystal clear as possible. I'm not saying Slimmers is a bad person. I'm not saying what she did was oh so terrible, because I don't give a shit. The point that I'm making here is, that fucking community got so uppity because Madame sent her audience after Slimmers. Then when Slimmers did it, they made excuses. Then when I sent my non-existent fucking audience to go fuck with Slimmers, mind you, I had 0 subscribers, they lost their fucking minds over some mean tweets. Then that same community had the audacity to start lying and falsely accusing me for a year. These people have no self-awareness, no fucking consistency to save their lives.
There's a lot of things that have been destroyed. A lot of people's lives, careers, and more that have been destroyed. And just because, sometimes, even if there's no evidence, they're destroyed.
Except here there is evidence. There's a lot of evidence, and we keep finding more.
Thanks to this video especially, we found lots.
People who allegedly scam their fans out of money by claiming they're going to sue Onision and then take that money to go on a vacation and attend a concert in Washington shouldn't have a platform where they get to keep doing that.
Not to mention crying about being homeless and losing her livelihood in a Discord server, and then trying to flex on them haters with a screenshot of AdSense from a month ago, and a $3,000 purse.
Akumu, I understand being perturbed at the notion that people can go overboard and harm those who haven't done anything simply because someone who didn't like them claimed, without evidence, that they were a bad person. But this is not that, and you are directing and composing yourself as though it were. And this isn't even a belief that you're solid on, as you have expressed that if people whom you like can have their lives ruined by false allegations, or what you perceive to be false allegations, then people you don't like should have it done to them too. Apparently, even if it can be proven false. That's not how this works. You don't get to see someone fall just because you don't like them, even if they did nothing wrong. Even then, why would it be up to some random 16-year-old who falls and who climbs? You're getting mad at the community for wanting to see consequences dealt to someone who literally broke the fucking law and who has been directing harassment against minors who get in her way.
But Ponder, Slimmers sinned. She's a sinner.
From what I can recall, the discussion was about cancel culture, and this ties into my mirroring mockery of you retards. You ask me, why does a 16-year-old get to decide who falls? And I ask you, why does a random fucking community who bitches and screams inconsistently get to decide who falls? The only difference is it's one person versus a community of people. You don't like the behavior, but the only reason I behaved that way was because that's how your community behaves on a monthly basis. Overdramatic, whiny, moral tangents, this pathetic good person, bad person mentality over the dumbest shit. Justice crusading, often riddled with a false sense of trying to hold people accountable and give them these mystical consequences. Oh, I wonder what two anime characters do that delusional shit. If you don't believe me, look at the comment sections of all my videos pertaining to the fucking art community. Look at the members of the FCK and their videos on me. My whiny talk of justice, good and bad, accountability was all done for a reason. My usage of Light Yagami and Zamazu, quoting both characters in my Twitter fuckery.
Yes, let me just bring up how the artist is marked by sin.
Corrupted and marred by
If you're gonna keep making excuses for someone witch hunting, don't fucking Pikachu face when someone else does it. This inconsistent shit plagues your community. Oh, we're gonna act like this, justify ourselves and make excuses, but when someone else acts that same fucking way, then it's a problem. Get over yourselves. If you don't like what's in the mirror, don't go blaming other people.
If you think that Slumers is also at fault, then you need to provide evidence of that, and you haven't been doing that. All you've been doing is misinterpreting the evidence we already have and acting like that proves your conspiracy theory.
Misinterpreting the evidence we already have and acting like that proves your conspiracy theory. Why does that sound so familiar? Kinda like acting as though this screenshot proves your conspiracy theory that I was trying to dox Slumers, or repeatedly lying about me deleting tweets, all because I deleted one tweet to push your conspiracy theory that I was trying to hide it. This can keep going, but most of you are smart enough to catch on to what I'm saying.
I'm basically stating they have double standards.
But it's not double standards. Double standard, a rule or principle that is unfairly applied in different ways to different people or groups. It's being unfairly applied because the rules that were broken were not equal on scale or quantity.
The crimes are different, therefore the reaction from the public is different.
Listen guys, we don't have double standards. Madame telling her audience to go attack Slumers, horrible, horrible fucking person. How dare she? We don't like that. Slumers telling her audience to attack Madame? She's just a 15-year-old, guys, come on. She could be meaning other stuff despite literally calling it an attack and telling them to continue. Akumu, a 16-year-old telling his at the time non-existent audience to attack Slumers. Fucking disgusting. How dare he do that? True harassment. Piece of shit. Let's spend the next year lying about him. But hey, they don't have double standards. That's ridiculous.
Now I'm aware people are going to reply with, you shouldn't have a platform, or anything along the lines of platform. I know that there's going to be some kind of someone that types clown emojis. But this is the truth, folks. Just like the video all you want, but sometimes the truth hurts.
The only one that hasn't been able to handle the truth here is you, hon.
Nezziemonster, that did not age well, because after this video, a few months later, you went on to make false sexual harassment accusations, and then anytime I talked about it, you fucking lied about it. Whether it be in twit-longer apologies or responding to your audience asking questions about it, you lied to them. Then in the recent call that we had in Senate, you contradicted yourself there while again trying to paint it as an honest mistake. You have continuously tried to paint your actions and what you did back then as an honest mistake, when the facts of what actually happened completely contradict that. Now, I'm not going to get into all of that in this video because I've made 3 videos, plus I've uploaded the call with Nezzie giving context as to everything there. So if you want to go see it, again, those videos are in the playlist linked down below. You can learn all about what the art community refuses to talk about and acknowledge, and the very few that do buy into her honest mistake narrative.
Because whenever someone proves your point wrong, you either suddenly ghost or bite back like an animal backed into a corner.
Now, why would I make this video? Because Slumers made mistakes, yet just because she's been revealed to be 15 and her dad decided to be inappropriate, people are literally treating her like she's done nothing wrong. Immediately forgiving her.
No.
People also already knew her fucking age.
Also, can we all just acknowledge this instance of a teenager wording something particularly bad by saying that potential sexual assault was someone acting inappropriate? Ugh.
Even if no one knew about this, which everyone had stated should have been kept fucking private.
Which means that we also have spreading a minor's traumatic experience to people online under the guise that she is a liar because you want to be spiteful to be mad at Madame for as well.
Madame only revealed the sexual assault case as a desperate attempt to make her seem like a liar. Nobody wanted to talk about it because it had nothing to do with anything.
It's easy to immediately forgive someone when not only do they apologize, their mistake was also small and kind of inconsequential.
Especially in comparison to all the other shit the other party did.
Remember when we said that artists pick and choose their battles? Akumu, are you an artist? Pick and choose your battles, man.
Wonderful advice. Genuinely good advice. I'm just a little confused on why you didn't take it. Think back to part 1. You could have not accused me of trying to dox Slumers. You could have shown my screenshots that disproved it. I don't know, you could have given the whole context, but you didn't. You cherry-picked for your conspiracy and then proceeded to accuse me of taking things out of context for my own little conspiracy that you can't even fully lay out because you constantly twist my fucking words. Why not pick your own battles better? I have an example outside of this video though. When Just a Robot dared to talk about holy vajesties, furry baby animal degenerate porn, after Vajesty was talking about Just a Robot, you took to Twitter and his comment section to whine about it and make excuses for it. Oh, I don't know. Maybe you should pick and choose your battles, man.
Just because she's underage? Are you joking? How can you allow someone to condone cancel culture because what, she was sexually assaulted? Get out of here. A sexual assault is not a pass to continuously make mistakes.
Literally nobody said that. Everybody actively tried to avoid talking about it because it had nothing to do with anything.
Why are you so convinced that everyone is going easy on Slumers because of her sexual assault and not because the issues being presented behind either party are completely different? Why must you assume people are addressing the situations different specifically because of the sexual assault, when the video that most people have talked about, Madame's response, has Madame acknowledging that she was also sexually assaulted?
Yeah, did you forget that Madame also claimed to be a victim of sexual assault, and yet nobody's been going easy on her?
Now, if someone were looking at the situation differently, acknowledging Slumers' sexual assault and purposely ignoring Madame's, you might have a point with that particular person. But not only have you not showcased that, we've already explained that there are plenty of other reasons why people are treating what Madame did as being different from what Slumers did. Because it was. Also, because Madame revealed her own sexual assault publicly online of her own choice. She doesn't get to make that choice for Slumers.
Several people said that. The only reason it made its way into my video was because people from Twitter were making the argument that Slumers being a sexual assault victim somehow made her entirely innocent in the Madame situation. In fact, this screenshot here that you all will see the FCK repeatedly use, though it's altered, is from a conversation with someone who was making that same argument. That's what pissed me off, the ridiculous mental gymnastics when mentioning her sexual assault. 3 people made that argument the same fucking day. Hell, the art community went on to accuse me of victim blaming. However, they're right. I should have provided screenshots of what I was referring to when I said that.
First you're talking about the sexual assault, now you're talking about someone who claimed to know what your art looks like. Way to switch topics mid-sentence. You do not have the maturity to talk about this. You barely seem to have the focus for it.
Oh, this is just great. The person who went on to make false sexual harassment allegations against a minor, not once but twice, the second time when she knew it was false, does have the maturity to talk about it. Is that what you're getting at here? And she did that only a few months after this video. So please grandstand me more on your imaginary pedestal of virtue.
Something else I found rather comedic is when artists scream art theft or art thieves, even though in this case it's not art theft.
Even by your own definition it is.
Now, why do I find it funny? 2 reasons. It's funny because people who usually scream art thieves or art theft literally have public Instagrams, DeviantArts, or sites that have their art on it. Seriously, you can't yell art thief, but be posting your art on a superhighway of data called the internet.
Ah yeah, here it is. Here it is.
That would be like unlocking your doors in your house and then complaining when someone breaks in and takes them.
Yeah, it would be dumb to refer to it as though it was breaking and entering, because the term would actually be home invasion, which is still a crime even if you leave your door open or unlocked.
Or trespassing on private property.
See what I just did there? We acknowledged that the understood term was incorrect, and then we made a correction as to what the proper term would be. Akumu, take notes.
You can't say that someone can do something purely because they were able to. The opportunity for crime doesn't justify the act of committing it. That's dumb. It doesn't matter if I left my door unlocked, the property is still mine and the items in the house are still mine. By your logic, everybody should be allowed to take whatever they want if a person doesn't take action to actively protect an item of value.
My point is this. Don't upload something on the internet and then Pikachu face when people download it and use it. People have downloaded my YouTube videos and re-uploaded them or just archived them. I'm not going to sit here and whine and cry about it because I chose to upload it publicly for everyone to see and access. There's a reason the internet is called a forever archive. How many years have you been on the internet? Fucking what, 10 by now? And you haven't picked up on this? You haven't learned this?
Considering she doesn't have a legal business either, she most likely does not, and she hasn't mentioned it.
And she doesn't need to. Why? Because she doesn't need one.
That is cringe!
I think you all can tell I had a lot of fun with this. But I searched around if it was necessary for an individual to have a business license in order to sell their work, and guess what? Whether freelancers need a business license depends in part on the services they provide. Graphic designers, for example, commonly aren't required to get a license if they operate under their names and report business earnings as personal income. Boom. Slimmers is technically a freelance artist, an individual who works for their own individual income with their work. She wouldn't need a license to sell her work.
Except for the fact that a freelance artist has to report their business earnings as personal income, and she wasn't getting any at the time. Or are we just going to ignore that part of the screenshot? Something tells me we're going to ignore that part of the law since it's a little inconvenient. These videos already have a long running habit of ignoring information that's inconvenient to their claims. There was no business because there were no earnings at the time, and thus no personal fucking income. Pretty much almost everything else they go over about copyright is correct, though.
She had first posted her work to YouTube, DeviantArt, or even Amino that provides you an intellectual property rights to that image posted on there, this could be different.
It's been a moment!
Your work is under copyright protection the moment it is created and fixed in a tangible form that is perceptible either directly or with the aid of a machine or device. We've already said this, but just in case you didn't hear it in the back.
On top of registering your copyright with regards to digital and sometimes physical artwork, provided a picture of the piece is taken, another way you can prove your artwork is your own is by showing an authentication date in the form of an upload. This can be an image of the piece that you upload to YouTube, DeviantArt, or Amino, as Akumu stated, those would work, but so would any post of the image on Instagram, Pixiv, Twitter, Tumblr, or really any site that tracks the date of uploads. You can also send the image to yourself in an email. Actually, I hear that's quite a common technique. You know what else would work? That screenshot where Slimmers sent Madame the avatar stills, because it stipulates a date and time the image was uploaded online. So not only can that screenshot be shown to demonstrate that Madame was given the art she's been using without paying for it, it can also be shown to demonstrate that Slimmers owns the copyright to that art. That seems kind of funny, I don't know about you.
Also again, by that logic, I apparently don't own the pictures that I post of myself.
An additional complication in Akumu's wording that I would like to point out here, barely a minute ago, Akumu stated that you can't complain about art theft in a setting like the internet, where artwork is posted in easy-to-see spaces and websites. Now he's stating that if Slimmers had posted her work somewhere like DeviantArt, Amino, or Pixiv, she would have been fine, except then the artwork would be posted in a publicly available forum, and according to Akumu, she wouldn't be able to complain if Madame stole it, even though posting it there, again, according to him, is supposed to offer her some level of artistic protection.
No, I said she would have some proof of licensing and that she made the work. Something to back up her copyright. I never said she would have been fine or that people still couldn't download it. Just because she has some form of protection doesn't mean that people can't download the photo. Having some form of protection doesn't change the fact that she's uploading it to the internet. Again, we're back to that tactic of trying to painfully force a contradiction or inconsistency that just isn't there.
This is almost along the same lines as claiming that a crime cannot be considered theft if the thing stolen is not a physical good, therein no longer in the victim's possession, not only ignoring the second definition of the word that would allow for the inclusion of digital art, especially given that Akumu claimed that credit could be stolen, but also, I guess, apparently forgetting that identity theft is a thing?
Actually, a quick note, Akumu tried explaining his side to me, only after a little prodding, as when I didn't immediately agree with him and asked him to clarify, he wasn't originally willing to. And within those comments, he said the same thing. He said that Slimmers didn't own her work because she hadn't filed for a copyright, but when I pointed out that by that logic, I don't own any of my work, he said that no, I own my work, except I also haven't paid for a copyright. So why do I own my work without having to pay for this copyright, but Slimmers doesn't own her work because of the same thing?
The answer to your question is in the screenshot. You own the files of your own artwork. You made the artwork. However, don't distribute that work. The original files you made are yours. If you upload a copy to the internet and someone downloads it, you still have your art and they now have a copy because you chose to upload it to a public archive that anyone can access. Again, you're trying to force this idea that there's a contradiction or inconsistency when there isn't. Get a new tactic, you're bad at this one. It's become very obvious that they're just being intentionally obtuse and skirting around my point. If you're going to post your shit on the internet, post your artwork, your drawings on the internet. Don't go Pikachu facing when people download it. You look really fucking silly. I know you want to wage these little retarded wars over art, but this is really fucking stupid.
It's funny too because people are saying I'm obsessive and insane. Why? Because I'm doing something they don't like. Yet when I call them the same, I'm in the wrong. When I do the same, I'm in the wrong. Why? Because these people are pathetic and don't like it. They don't want the truth out.
People are calling you obsessive and insane because you refuse to leave Slimmers alone. It's one thing to make a video, but you have shown that you went after Slimmers so much that you've been blocked by her on both platforms. You even admitted in this video that you had to view Slimmers' Instagram to get that screenshot of her stories with an alternate account.
The reason I love the whole you harass Slimmers claim.
Also, didn't she block you because you were basically harassing her on not only Twitter but also Instagram?
But even then, why would that justify you harassing Slimmers?
Is because it's so exaggerated and they can never get into the specifics of any of it. Probably because they know that it doesn't add up to jack shit. But I can get into the specifics of it. So when she blocked me on Twitter, right? Our first interaction was on September 24th of 2019. I replied to her something along the lines of "that dumb artist." I believe Ponder and Nezzie put it up on screen. That was my first reply to her. I then replied to her 2 more times on September 24th. These are those 2 replies. Other people began replying to my replies to her, spawning several threads with her in the tags. She replied to me 1 time on September 24th. On September 25th, she then began replying to me a lot more, specifically replying to what I was saying, not to her, but to other people in the threads that I just mentioned a second ago. Once it reached the point where I said she was marked by sin, she had then blocked me. For a little bit, she continued to reply to me, with me blocked, so I used an incognito tab to see what she was saying to me, and then she privated her account. This was all on September 25th. From Madlib's video that came out in September of 2020, the A Year of Harassment and Accusations, Madlib shows each and every single time me and Slumers interacted in tweets. Now, that one tweet of Slumers that says September 23rd is because me and Slumers are in 2 different time zones. There is an hour difference between the 2 of us. So for me, that was September 24th. For her, that was September 23rd. That interaction was late at night. From her replies to me and the shit that she says in the replies, you can see that this is clearly not one-sided. And just to add to the fact that this was not a one-sided thing, Slumers and her followers and the art community were mass reporting my account. The very reason I made my second Twitter account was because they mass reported my first one into suspension. The art community loves to claim that I made these alt accounts to harass Slumers and get around her blocking me, which is a complete falsehood because they're leaving out the fact that they were mass reporting my accounts. Keep in mind that this was an entire community dogpiling one individual, and they say I harassed her. Now on Instagram, she blocked me because I got into an argument with her commenters. It was some post about her OC and what gender it should be, and they began whipping out these like non-existent fucking genders as suggestions, and so it turned into a gender debate. And then she blocked me. Not because I said anything to her or about her.
I mean, probably also because he's reading into things so incorrectly and contradicting the flow of events to suit his narrative so much that it is kind of a thing that an obsessive person does.
Not to mention, you've been advertising this video as a biased narrative specifically against Slimmers, despite saying both did wrong. Another kind of obsessive thing. So obsessive, in fact, that you've ignored all the other things that Madame has done because you know it would outweigh hers.
Everyone says that I'm insane! Guy, wouldn't a sane person start to question their sanity at that point?
Reading into things so incorrectly and contradictory to suit his narrative. The irony speaks for itself at this point. A complete lack of self-awareness. Second, I didn't ignore the other things Madame did. They just weren't relevant to my fucking point. What does her scam have to do with the fact the art community's inconsistent? Literally nothing. Third, well, if everyone says it, shouldn't you question it? I'm honestly not surprised you think like that, considering how rampant groupthink is in the art community. A group of people claiming something doesn't really give it merit, just as a group of people denying something doesn't mean it didn't happen. For example, your community can keep reciting the claim I tried to dox Lemurs, but it won't make it true though. How about another? The Hunter Biden laptop, which was denied by Biden himself, countless other politicians, our government, such as the FBI, who denied it, and advised social media companies to censor discussion of— oh, wait, they knew that it wasn't false. Turns out the laptop is very real. Huh.
Side note, it is rather upsetting Madlibs won't be making a response. I wonder what she has to say. She's blocked me. I didn't lie about Slumers, nor have I lied about her in general. I never claimed to have her number. I said I had her county in court case, which was provided by OMG, IJ, however, or James. He provided it. It's a YouTube video, so...
Okay, for one thing, you absolutely suck at cluing people in on what's going on. You know that unless someone was intimately aware of the situation and what you've been doing on Twitter, they would have no idea what you were talking about, right? For another, not only does this ignore the context of the tweet where you were apparently, according to you, directly asking people to send you Slimmers' dox information, or at the very least, information so personal that you could have used it to dox her, you're also ignoring that apparently the information you were able to get came as a result of a bad censoring job on OMGIJ's part, and that it's kinda creepy that the one guy this obsessed with taking Slimmers down has gone out and found that document. That really just showcases how dangerous it could have been for Madame to have actually succeeded in doxing Slimmers.
The two of them previously accused me of trying to look into private information in an attempt to dox Lemurs. Then as you saw, they admitted the fact someone else publicized the information I was looking into, which they left out of part 1 even though that's what they were talking about for 15 fucking minutes. After the 4 or 5 times now they've tried to accuse me of contradicting myself, they again contradict themselves from part 1. But hold on, Ponder's words there, directly asking people to send you Lemurs' dox information, or at the very least, information so personal that you could have used it to dox her. Ponder. Just a few months ago, you literally fucking asked your audience to give you the phone number of a minor.
Someone fucking figure out who the hell this kid is so I can call her parents.
So overall, it's Moxie. Happy start to end.
Literally, if someone gives me this kid number, I will call her goddamn parents. No shame. I will tell them what she's been doing.
So first she tells her audience of rabid loons to figure out who the kid is so she can call their parents. That if someone gives her this kid's number, she'll call them. Ponder, I thought that was trying to dox. I was trying to look into information that was publicly released. That she and Nezzie knew was publicly released because they just mentioned it in part 2, but left it out of part 1. In part 1, they used my statement of I have full intentions referring to looking into that, so that they could accuse me of trying to dox Lemurs. Yet here Ponder is, 3 years later, telling her audience to find out who some kid is and asking for their phone number. I already know exactly what her stupid fucking audience's defense is going to be for this. A, they'll take what I'm saying here out of context to claim I'm defending what this kid did. And no, I'm not. B, they'll bring up what the kid did, thinking it will miraculously change what Ponder and Nezzie said 3 years ago and what Ponder said in that clip. I know B is a guarantee because one of them already did it when I uploaded my meme about this hypocrisy specifically. They're so fucking predictable when it comes to defending their queen Ponder that I had half of this next part already scripted before I even got the comment, but the comment serves as a perfect example. Akumu, I think you might be a grade A idiot. They were talking about a child who legit spread around fucking CP, which is a crime. The parents of said child had no care for how the child was acting on the internet. Did you watch the video, you moron? I already disproved Ponder's accusation that I was trying to dox Lemurs in my part 1, but I'm applying her own logic and standards onto her, so I'll break this down for you idiots. What this child did does not change the fact that in 2020, Ponder and Nezzie accused me of trying to get private information of a minor so that they could then accuse me of trying to dox said minor. And one of their many times accusing me of this, they specifically stated that you don't ask for the private information of someone on a public fucking forum.
Also, I'm not surprised these people thought that. You don't ask for someone's personal information on a public fucking forum.
Her and Nezzie also said later on in that same video that Lemurs' Wi-Fi number was still private information because it was still her phone number.
The number was fake and she said it was in the post. So it wasn't by definition a dox because it isn't real.
That's not how that works. Criminal intent is the intention to break the law. Madame said it was fake in a second post, not the first one. She was under the impression the number was real and thus means she showed criminal intent. And not only that, the number wasn't technically fake. It was a temporary number. It was still Lemurs' number, but it was created by an app and not a registered cell phone. That was still her number.
Meaning they consider phone numbers private information. They claim later on in part 2 that they thought that I was trying to get her phone number.
And was asking what her number was on a public forum, for fuck's sake.
Yet in 2023, on her YouTube channel, a public fucking forum, Ponder asked her followers to find out who the kid was and for the kid's phone number. According to Ponder, I apparently asked for private information of a minor on a public forum, and that is a no-no. You shouldn't do that. According to Ponder, that was me trying to dox said minor. And also according to Ponder, a phone number is private information. You following along here? In 2023, Ponder asked for a minor's phone number, which again, according to her, is private information. And again, according to her, asking for private information about a minor on a public forum is bad and is apparently trying to dox. She falsely accused me of doing it, and then by her own logic, tried to do it. I'm not the one who came up with these standards. Ponder and Nezzie did, and I'm not the one who contradicted it. Ponder did. What Kenji did or was doing does not change what the two of them said in 2020. It does not change what Ponder said in that clip from 2023, contradicting what she falsely accused me of in 2020. It does not change that she did the same thing she falsely accused me of in that clip, asking for a minor's private information on a public forum. Because of all of that, it doesn't change the hypocrisy or magically make it disappear like you oh so want it to. What the kid did is entirely irrelevant irrelevant from my point and you know it. Now, will she get thousands of idiots accusing her of trying to dox? Of course not, because rules for thee but not for me. This is the cherry on fucking top, and now my favorite Ponder Sprocket moment.
How did you not realize that Summers may not have known about the bad censoring as it was OMG's job, and approaching her with her county and case files wouldn't be creepy as shit? That is sick. Also, can we just point out the god-awful way this guy presents his screenshots? Like, what is this supposed to be? Who is talking? Who's tweeting? We know it's you because Ponder and I have seen your tweets, but nobody else would know this was you.
Why are you censoring yourself? Where was this even from? Was that screenshotted from someone else's video? Why is the formatting such garbage?
Who's talking in the lower part? We can't see who the comment came from. Did it come from this Mad Libs person you're talking about? This whole screenshot looks pointless because there's no context for anything. We don't even know where this screenshot is from because it's cropped in such a weird way. It could be Instagram, Twitter, YouTube.
While you make a great point about the presentation, why are you pretending like you don't know where that screenshot is from or who Mad Libs is? I get it, the audience didn't know about your group and its goals at the time, but it's really fucking silly, and in retrospect, you look really fucking stupid. Even if we give the benefit of the doubt and say that Ponder had no idea and hadn't seen Mad Libs' video to know that's where I got the screenshot from, Nezziemonster 100% seen the video. She knew exactly who she was. And this clip will also come up later.
If you agree with doing the right thing, for justice, if you believe that all justice should be served, if you believe that the truth, not just fragments of the truth, but the entire truth should be out, you'll support me. You'll like this video. You won't continue this. You won't deny the truth. You'll accept it.
If you disagree with me, you're wrong. If you don't agree with what I say here, even if you provide reasons for it, you're wrong. And above all, if you don't agree with me, you don't agree with the truth. Akumu, let's be real here. Even the logic you are presenting with this, if you think that Madame should be harassed, then it's okay for me to harass Slummers, is stupid. By that logic, there could be a billion people who agree that it's not okay to harass Madame, but if one person disagreed and went out of their way to harass her, then by what you are presenting here, it is then justified for you to harass Slummers. And even then, why should it not be the reverse? You think that if people you like can have their lives ruined, that justifies the lives of people you don't like also being ruined. So why would this only apply to you? You think it's okay to harass Slummers, so why could other people not therein use that knowledge to say it's then okay to harass Madame because she did so much worse? Your logic is predicated on you and only you getting what you want because it's what you personally, as a 16-year-old boy who isn't even fully mentally developed, believe is right. This is ridiculous. You are being a child.
Holy shit, was I pretentious. While you make a good point, you're missing the point. There are only two differences between me deciding and your community deciding. First is the amount of people, obviously. Second is that your community is massively fucking inconsistent. If you all do get to pick and choose who to hound, who falls, and who's held accountable, as you like to tell yourselves, then why don't I or anyone else? It's because accountability and all that other horseshit you all go on about is selective. You get to wield it, but when anyone else does, it's a problem, especially when it's wielded at you. That's something I've realized. A perfect example of this is that you have fucking Nezziemonster back in 2023 in calls with people, demanding they be held accountable, whilst dodging accountability for her own fuck-ups. I mean, it can't get any better than that. You all write the jokes yourselves. And to really explain things here, what I've always wanted to do since 2020 is hold up a mirror in front of you all. Because the second that happens and you look in that mirror, you start screeching, blaming the person behind the mirror. You project your own faults onto everyone else constantly. And what I mean by that, by holding up a mirror, is applying your own standards that you've applied to everybody else back onto yourselves, just to see if you actually keep consistent with them. And you don't. You hopped on the bandwagon just as everyone else did. You and your community tried to lecture me as if you all aren't riddled with childlike sentiments yourself, the delusional LARPing, the zero fucking self-awareness, and the never-ending pathetic sob story of excuses. All because you can't keep the same expectations you put on others. And Ponder, you're a perfect example of that too. You got onto me in part 1 because I was censoring comments that I shouldn't have been doing so. even going as far as stating that me censoring Slimer's comment, deleting it, on a video about her was ridiculous and I shouldn't have been doing it.
That's what he's doing here when he says that he has been removing comments from his video. Slimer's even commented, and that comment is no longer on the video. Ironic that the first thing he did in his video was talk about how people on Twitter didn't want to hear the truth and were actively trying to suppress it, and yet he hid a comment from the very person whom he was not only apparently trying to get into contact with, but also made a video on trying to expose them for being an awful manipulative person. That's a whole other level of wow.
Which is perfectly fine. I'm not in disagreement with that. And yet, why is it you censored me? You have hidden me from your channel, meaning that no one can see my comments. And if you're curious, well, what's the evidence? Why don't you go check yourself right now? I'll link the video down below. Go to the comment section, go to the comment threads. You will see comment threads that are 4 to 5 years old. And you will see that people have replied to me, but you can't see anything that I've said. I not only had friends of mine check just to make sure I wasn't schizophrenic, and then I checked myself with an alt account just to see if I could see my own comments. In big shock, I can't. And then when I started using that alt account to reply to people, she hid that too. It's rules for thee, but not for me. She's even gone as far as censoring some, not all, but some of my audience members. And we all know it was a fucking outcry 2019 and early 2020 that some random 16-year-old was censoring comments on his video, yet a 106k YouTuber who has criticized others for that, who has gone and censored not just me, because I was commenting on a video about me, but has censored my audience members as well. That's not going to be talked about. And if it is talked about, I guarantee you there's going to be a bullshit excuse brought to the table instead of just acknowledging the flat out fucking hypocrisy. And she did this after I released my part 1, the video before this one, specifically because I was in her comment section informing the people that I had made part 1 and I would be making part 2 really soon, and that they should go ahead and watch part 1 if they're interested in knowing what actually happened.
I messaged OMGIJ252, the YouTuber, on Twitter, and we were talking about the situation with Slimer's and Madam, and I let him know of the evidence that I found. He responds with, okay, I'm gonna try not to be biased with it. Claire was a fan of Madam. She told me herself she's a fan, and after watching her hospital video, she drew fan art. She did not tell Madam's correct age. She did it because regardless of Ashley being one of Claire's favorite YouTubers, she didn't want to give a stranger her age on the internet. She did later on tell Ashley the truth, though. Slimer's didn't have a PayPal because she doesn't have a bank account to store PayPal money to, which we know.
Okay, firstly, you already stated that her age was in her bio. This is according to your own video. Knowing that her age was in her bio, why would Slimer's try to hide her age? And even then, yeah, not telling someone your age online because they're a stranger is kind of a good reason to lie about your age.
Secondly, you're asking a third party about what another individual experienced? I don't care if they're friends or if they know each other. This is all still hearsay.
Thirdly, Slimer's already stated that she told Madame her age. You have, up until this point, demanded proof of that, alongside firmly stating that she did not tell Madame her age, despite the fact that you have absolutely no evidence to support this claim. Now, OMGIJ is telling you that Slimer's did tell Madame her age without offering proof, and now you're believing it? Or conceding that it could potentially be true, despite not only operating as though it was firmly not true throughout this entire video rather than just something there was no evidence for or against, but also OMGIJ got the information that it was true from Slimer's. So you don't believe a claim if it comes directly from Slimer's, but if it's offered up by somebody else who was likely told by Slimer's, then you'll consider it? It's almost like you have a firm, unabashed bias against Slimer's, and whatever she said wouldn't fucking matter.
It should also be noted that OMGIJ states that Slimer's originally did not give Madame the correct age and then did, but once again provides absolutely no evidence of this. Is that the reason why you're entertaining hearsay that doesn't have any evidence? Because it confirms your preconceived notion that Slimer's initially lied about her age?
This is going to require a point-by-point breakdown, because as you just heard, they shoehorned a lot of fucking claims in just 2 minutes. Number 1, no. I stated she later put her age in her bio and then took it out. You two twisted that and have since been repeating this claim. On top of the fact that you just made an excuse for her lying about her age, after denying that she lied about her age, after twisting my words to make it seem as though I was saying Slimer's lied about her age. What the fuck?
Bitch, are you dumb?
Pardon me?
Are you dumb?
I think she's dumb.
I think she's dumb.
I think she's dumb. Are you, like, medically speaking,
Secondly, Slumers claimed she told Madame her age, but provided no evidence of it. I, on the other hand, went over how she didn't mention her age to Madame when she had multiple opportunities to do so. Like, I don't know, when she said she didn't have a PayPal, or when she told Madame that she didn't have a phone number. Third, no, I didn't say that what OMGIJ252 claimed was concrete in the slightest, just that, oh, hey, another claim she told Madame her age, and no evidence for it. And fourth, I never made the argument she lied about her age, again repeating the same old straw man. I did, however, say that she was pretending to be older. Pretending to be older is not the same as outright claiming to be older. You both get onto me for supposedly taking Jamesy's word to support my preconceived notions, while ignoring the fact that I did ask Slumers for evidence that she told Madame her age, and it went nowhere. James was speaking with Slumers and a part of the FCK Discord as of October 2019. He was the second best bet. And 5, it's fucking hilarious that Nezziemonster wants to talk about not having evidence, not just because of the doxing claim, or her lying about what Madame said, but considering the sexual harassment accusation she made a few months after this video came out, that she gave no evidence for.
Even if he's not believing that part, and he's just believing OMGIJ when he says that she lied about her age initially and later corrected it to Madame, that contradicts Madame's own retelling of events, where she said that she assumed Slumers was older because she mentioned that she was prepping for college, indicating that Slumers did not claim herself to be older and it was an assumption on Madame's part.
You just contradicted what Nezziemonster said in part 1, again, where she claimed that Madame admitted in her video that she knew Slumers was underage the entire time.
It's even funnier when you realize that Madame acknowledges in her response that she knew Slumers didn't have a PayPal because she was underage, and the fact that Slumers said she would get one next year is what led her to suspect she was lying about it.
But it doesn't stop there. It never does with these people, because you also just confirmed exactly what I said to begin with, that Madame assumed that Slumers was an adult because Slumers was pretending to be older. It's why she didn't admit that she was underage when the topic of the phone number came up, and then she suddenly had a phone number and still didn't explain why, or why she didn't admit to it when she said that she didn't have a PayPal. But of course you're not going to admit to the fact that I was right, because you can't do that. That would break the whole facade. So what do? You invent this intricate fucking twisting of my words, where you claim to your audience that I'm claiming that Slumers told Madame that she was older.
Claire brought up her assault story because Madame said she faked it. You think Claire should be punished for faking her age and condoning cancel culture, but you dig through her private case all because you want to point. I don't know how anyone else feel, but to me that's honestly really stupid. Then he sends another message saying Claire also told me that Madame did eventually credit her for a short period of time, but after the situation escalated, it was removed. All I'm going to say at this point is that going through her case is wrong, and her entire case is her business. She may have shared it to various YouTubers, but she only showed us to prove a point, not for anyone to scroll through her private records and stuff. So you're telling me that someone underage is going to tell a stranger on the internet, let alone with a following, let alone known to occasionally be toxic. I mean, she's a Leafy rebrand, or a Leafy clone, if you will. She's going to tell that person her sexual assault story in 2 weeks of knowing that, but she can't tell him that she's 15.
Oh yeah, and I guess let's just ignore that OMGIJ states that Slumers clarified to him that Madame did fix the credit when you've been claiming that she was not making an effort to make sure people knew that. Sure, let's just glance over him blatantly stating that she did the thing that you claim she wasn't doing.
You seem to think that that's some kind of gotcha, and that's either because you're missing the overall point or you're purposely dodging the overall point. James said in our DMs that he was told by Slumers that Madame initially fixed the credit, but it wasn't in his video that he made with the help of Slumers.
Not all sexual assault victims are going to act the same, and Slumers stated that she did it as a method of sympathy because Madame admitted in the hospital video she made fan art for that she was also a victim. How is it so odd for Slumers to do this to an individual of trust, but not for Madame to tell her decreasing 50k audience of strangers?
I would also like to point out, and God, nobody get offended by my wording here, a sexual assault is kind of a nebulous thing and isn't directly tied to a person as an individual. It's a traumatic experience, but not one of the descriptors that could let someone actively track another person down. Unless it was massively broadcast somewhere. People share their experiences all the time without sharing personal details about their person. People on Reddit write stories about their lives without indicating their age, gender, race, or place of birth unless it's relevant to that story. I don't see why it's so shocking that a person would reveal an experience they went through but choose not to share their age, assuming that's what she did, because Slumers claimed that she did share her age in a call with Madame, and Madame claims in that same call that she didn't share her age.
Your argument is a sexual assault story isn't that identifying, so that's why Slumers is willing to share that, unlike her age. Yet she literally gave Madame a phone number to reach her. A phone number can be used to track someone down, even an online one, right? It was still her phone number.
And not only that, the number wasn't technically fake. It was a temporary number. It was still Slimmers' number, but it was created by an app and not a registered cell phone. That was still her number.
You all have insisted that throughout both videos. I'm starting to notice a reoccurring habit throughout the last 4 years from both the art community and the slideshow community. None of them actually think about what they're going to say. Instead, they impulsively rush to make an excuse, not really understanding and thinking about if it makes any fucking sense to the situation at all.
A tragedy or traumatic event does not define an individual. Stop acting like it does.
I never acted like it did. It has been you and your community continuously acting like it does. It was you all who harped over it so much. You yourself, Nezzie, feel the need to bring up how you're in therapy and medicated anytime you're addressing an issue. You did it in the call with me, and you've done it on Twitter multiple times. How about the clutching to victimhood that the SCC and art audience have done with several people? Many, in regards to doodle tones, have clutched to the fact that Susie was groomed, that I'm mocking a victim of grooming. Fuchsia Butter, doodle tones, and Hopeless Peaches.
Now, there's some context here that needs to be highlighted, and that's the fact that Peaches was groomed for 7 years. Even at the time this all happened, they were still being manipulated by said groomer. So even if Peaches was 100% aware that there were kids in the server, which personally I doubt, this is something Peaches had normalized by their groomer.
All whipped out their tragedies and traumatic events to avoid criticism and excuse themselves. Both of these communities absolutely loves victimhood because they can bandwagon off of it. They love to paint themselves as victims to their own fuck-ups, backfiring, such is the case with me.
Me in to force me to break that, or the consequences would be dire. He called Nezzie, though like Harley, not art commentary, the R-slur, and racist. Peaches held a grudge against a child who played into his drama and encouraged me to block them. This was Musicina. He invalidated the trauma of others, saying they could just block people harassing them while he was openly and publicly talking about Kai and Omnia.
The call between Akumu and Nezzie was to try to work out things between them because Akumu had been harassing Nezzie for 4 years.
Okay. Can I ask a question then? Then why was I blocked?
Because I saw you in DMs with Akumu. And here's the thing. I'll put that on myself, that I probably should have asked, hey, why are you in DMs with Akumu and all that. But Akumu has harassed and been stalking my friends for literal years.
And they love to whip out their tragedies and traumatic events when they aren't relevant to gain sympathy.
Slimmers was also telling solely Madame, in a private chat, one person. A person that abused that trust and spread it in a disgusting last-ditch effort to appear the victim. Don't you dare try to equate the two.
I wasn't equating the two. I never even brought up Madame's story. My point was, Slimmers trusted Madame with her sexual assault story. Surely she could tell her her age. One is far more significant and personal than the other. It's also really fucking hilarious hearing Nezziemonster talk about Madame's attempt to appear the victim, when in recent years, Nezzie and her friends have attempted to make her appear the victim. I just showed you some fucking clips of it. The sheer poetic irony of how all these things played out. The hypocrisy. Stars had to have aligned for this, and I'm not a very religious man. In the FCK server, Nezzie talked about how I apparently learned fuck all from her collab, and yet she's been doing the same thing she took issue with Madame doing. You couldn't write this shit any better if you tried.
How does that make any sense? Now, he's not providing any evidence, so I have nothing but his word on this that she told her.
When has that stopped you before?
Emotions also don't have to make sense, especially when it comes to teenagers feeling them with a shuffle button on.
First, I've always clarified what is hearsay word and then what has evidence. But it's ironic you say that, considering you took just the word of others to claim I was trying to dox Slimmers and ran with it as fact, with no fucking proof. Pot meat kettle. On top of the fact that you didn't show any of the 2 days worth of tweets that proved it wrong because they were inconvenient. Secondly, you bitch at me for consistency, which is a fine criticism if you'd actually show inconsistency rather than pretend it's there for the sake of looking like you have a point. But then you make excuses for Slimmers being inconsistent.
But I am trying to contact Madam, as I already have spoken with her once. I'm trying to contact with her again to see see if she can provide me with evidence that she didn't tell her age.
Oh yeah, that's brilliant. Ask someone to prove a negative. Evidence 101, guys. You don't prove a negative. You provide evidence for a positive claim. In this case, I told her my age was a positive claim made by Slumers in response to Madame indicating that she didn't know how old the artist was. So he's not even going to the right person in trying to prove this negative.
You know, for someone who talks so highly about logic and common sense, how do you not know it's logical and common sense to ask the person making the claim, in this sense Madame, as she's the one claiming that Slumers lied about her age, to provide evidence for it?
On top of the fact that you can't even do that to begin with. Even then, both Madame and Slumers have claimed that this exchange happened in calls, so we already know that no evidence for either claim exists on either side. This is where credibility comes into play, and Madame has already demonstrated that her credibility is unreliable. This is Akumu's biggest problem. He keeps approaching his arguments through proving negatives rather than proving positives. Slumers doesn't have a copyright. This assumes that because he didn't see it or that it wasn't mentioned, it doesn't exist. Slumers did not tell Madame her age. This requires the entire conversation history between Madame and Slumers be analyzed, rather than simply providing proof of the positive, which has already been indicated does not exist. Slumers did not mention this fact in her Instagram stories. This requires all of the Instagram stories from that time be taken into consideration, but Akumu only provided a single slide from one of them. Akumu, you're arguing backwards from a negative stance, and a negative claim only works if you can provide proof of impossibility or evidence of absence, neither of which you have managed to do. Your arguments have even been disproven with these methods, like when we showcased that it was impossible for the screenshot you claim incited the docs to have done so because it didn't exist at the time. Or how about how the absence of evidence for either of Madame or Slumers' claims regarding what age or lack of age was given does not prove that either account did or did not happen.
What I just said, what you're bitching about, is literally what you just advised me to do, to get their chat logs and go through them. I wanted to go to Madame to get the chat logs. Never mind the inconvenient fact that I first asked Slumers for the evidence of it, to which I got nothing. Since Slumers gave Nani screenshots from their DMs, I went to Slumers first. I mentioned that I asked Slumers first for the evidence after I said she was pretending to be older in my fucking video.
This was around the time that Madame found out that Slumers was 15, although she pretended to be someone of age and even said she was going to college. This is coming from Madame's side of the story, but Slumers has not claimed it to be untrue. I asked for evidence to prove this wrong, and she has provided none.
You literally played that clip in this collab.
At this point, I can only assume Madame's testimony, which has already been called into question because of the sheer number of times she has been directly caught in a lie or a contradiction.
This is coming from Madame's side of the story, but Slumers has not claimed it to be untrue.
Why would Slumers need to come out and say that she didn't lie about her age? Nothing has been provided to prove that she did in the first place.
You can't prove a negative. If you make a claim, you're putting out a positive, or that something has occurred or exists, and therefore you are stuck with the burden of proof. Madame made a claim with no proof, other than it's what happened in a Discord call, and judging by her track history, I'm not inclined to believe a word she says without some type of physical proof.
Oh no, don't say physical. He'll argue that you're wrong because screenshots are digital.
I asked for evidence to prove this wrong, and she has provided none.
I tagged her in a tweet asking for evidence against this. Previously, I've asked if she'd like to call on Discord with a tweet.
You've stated before that at the beginning you were trolling, and you have shown that at every turn you insult her and everybody else.
Keep this in mind. They have pop up with a tweet from Slumers on September 28th denying that I asked for stuff, and yet here's a tweet from 4 days prior of me asking for shit. Now, why Slumers would make that claim, I don't know, unless she didn't see these tweets. But you know who did see these tweets? You know who did go through my entire fucking Twitter feed all the way back to September? Ponder and Nezziemonster. So they easily could have popped up a screenshot right then and there, showing the few times that I tagged Slumers asking for something, and yet they didn't do that. No, instead they take a tweet from Slumers denying it, despite the fact that they themselves could see that I did. They admitted to watching my Twitter account before it was suspended. And we've seen that they went all the way back to September. Not only that, but when it comes to this proving a negative, I've had to prove that I didn't attempt to dox Slumers, a claim you two made Funny how you all bitch about proving negatives, Lio included, when your community has constantly put me in the position of doing so by making claims and me needing to disprove them. That I didn't do this, that I didn't do that. It's okay when you all do it, but not okay when I do it. Oh wow. We've arrived at the usual fucking problem. You also admit that we cannot prove that Slumers told Madame her age, that we have no evidence to prove that claim. And you previously yapped about the burden of proof, yet you seem to ignore that all of a sudden. We have no evidence that she told her age, but there is evidence to suggest that she was pretending to be older. Then again, it is far easier to twist that into me claiming she lied about her age.
Now, I don't know where people got off with this. Like I said, if you watch the intro, I mean, obviously, if you're watching the video, you see the intro. People are saying I've doxed her. I don't know where people got off with that.
People weren't saying that you doxed her. They were saying don't dox her. Because based on your tweets, that's what they assumed you were trying to do. You had her case files and county and was asking what her number was on a public forum, for fuck's sake.
Someone fucking figure out who the hell this kid is so I can call her parents. Literally, if someone gives me this kid number, I will call her goddamn parents. No shame. I will tell them what she's been doing.
Nezziemonster just mentioned the case file and county and then claimed yet again that I was asking for Slumers' phone number on a public forum. But just 10 minutes ago, in this same fucking video, she said it was the county and case file.
How did you not realize that Slumers may not have known about the bad censoring as it was OMG's job, and approaching her with her county and case files wouldn't be creepy as shit? That is sick.
So, which is it? You can't have both. Either I was asking for her phone number, or I was asking about the case file. Oh, and 2 days after they released this collab, in March of 2020, in the FCK server, Nezzie pretended not to know about the fact I was actually talking about the case file. This is where she admitted to being wrong. Guys, I'm fucking pissed right now. Whomst has enraged thee? Someone sent me what started the Twitter thread Akumu shows in the beginning of his vid. Bruh. He's also on my Twitter. Yokes. I'm guessing that's an emoji from the server. So you know how me and Ponder thought it started because he was trying to get Slumers' number? Yeah, I did hear that part where he was trying to ask for personal info. He wasn't. He was trying to get private records. He now goes by Karma. Damn. I am fucking pissed. No, that's an old tweet. Oh, well, at least now we know he didn't went ahead and ask for personal info. It was just a minor misinterpretation. Don't be. No, I'm pissed because this is disgusting. She was acting so pissed and tired and done because she found out something that she already knew. That she said in the collab. Now, Nezzie found out I wasn't doxing, or attempting to dox, by getting my original tweet. And yet she didn't retract the claim that she peddled to thousands of art tards. But I have bad faith intentions, even though I'm willing to retract claims that are false, and clarify that they're false. It's interesting how that works. The point I'm making here is that these people aim to supposedly inform the audience, to dispel false narratives. Yet not only do they create false narratives, but they do so with false accusations they can't even be consistent with as they're making them. These are the people the art community says is credible and that you should listen to. People who can't keep the details straight to save their fucking lives. But they sure do love to act like they've got a gotcha. It's not even just these two that can't be consistent with the accusation. People who try to repeat it and use it against me from the art CC can't be consistent with it either. For example, Heaton Mitsuru, an orbiter of both Ponder Sprocket and Nezziemonster, claiming I asked for Slumers' counting, a piece of information I already had from James's video, and yet never released, which is a little odd, because if I aimed to dox her, why didn't I share it? They love to try and hold this against me, these Akumu lore historians trying to hold me accountable, and yet they don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. But they say these things with such autistic sass, conviction, and vigor, as if they have me by my balls. It's fucking hilarious to see. The biggest issue with both of them in both videos is their habit of obscuring truth within misinformation or flat-out lies, constantly twisting my words to make it look like I'm arguing something else entirely, then coming up with a convenient response to that interpretation and repeating it endlessly. It's why these videos are so lengthy to begin with. Part 1, the claim I was trying to dox Slumers, misinformation that is stuck around to this day, or claiming I was saying that Madame did do credit theft or plagiarism, and thus she did do art theft, or that I was saying Slumers lied about her age, or that I was saying her age was always in her bio, or that Madame always knew Slumers' age because of that, or that my argument was theft only applied to physical goods. That's enough fucking ors, I think you get the point. Those that don't will just accuse me of doubling down or backtracking despite the fact I made the video, and I know what I was trying to say far better than those two ever will. It's always a convenient twisting of what I was saying so that it can benefit them in argumentation for a quick gotcha. So in a similar fashion to what they did at the end of their video, how about we do a quick rundown of what we've been over. In 2019, I only deleted one tweet about the case file. I explained why, explained where I got the information from, and even provided a screenshot of that tweet so that it couldn't be further twisted and taken out of context. Yet in their part 1, the two of them managed to take it out of context, using the interaction with Nightburn, which in and of itself was also out of context, so that they could then push the accusation further. They had access to days worth of my tweets responding to the art commentary audience, with me clarifying that I was not doxing, that I was not releasing anything, and where I got the information from. If I was deleting tweets to hide it, why would I provide a literal fucking screenshot of it? If I was trying to hide it, why didn't I delete all of my responses that were denying the accusation to begin with? They also accused me of lying by omission, despite leaving out all of those tweets that contradicted the claim that they wanted to make, and they left out the fact that OMGIJ252 put the case file out there, meaning that it was already made public. Another piece of information that they knew of is they mentioned it themselves in part 2, but not part 1, where it was most relevant, oddly enough. Mind you, Ponder herself has clarified that it has to be private identifying information for it to be doxing. If it was already public, it's not doxing. She did so in the Sashley drama, a video that was made October of 2019, so the same month that she started scripting these two videos with Nezziemonster. The two of them also accused me of deleting other tweets I didn't even fucking delete. And to be clear, there were tweets I deleted, but the ones they accused me of deleting, I didn't delete. All to further the idea I was trying to hide what I was doing. When I said commenting troll, they turned that into me taking issue with others possibly trolling in my comments. I said Slumers didn't tell Madame her age and pretended to be an adult, and they somehow made it look like I was claiming Slumers lied about her age just so that they could demand proof from me for a claim I wasn't even making, which is how they've presented this idea that I have no evidence. Accumulating non-existent evidence. How fucking ironic is that? I said Madame knew Slumers' age when she tried to dox her, and the two of them twisted that to make it look like I was saying Madame knew her age the entire fucking time. I said Slumers put her age into her bio for a short period of time after the situation started, and that's somehow me saying that it was in her bio the entire time. It's the subtle twists of my words, equating or conflating my words and points, and then rebuttaling and repeating their rebuttal or interpretation of my point. They do have an occasional good point or a truth placed here and there, like in part 1 when they pointed out that Madame was using art that wasn't a part of her and Slumers' agreement, or that really good 6 minutes in part 2 where they correct my timeline mistake. But if I were to take both videos, total up their length, and cut it down to the parts where they actually told the truth or corrected me on something, there would be around maybe 20 to 30 minutes out of 2 fucking hours and 36 minutes. Let's really put that into perspective here. I'll be generous and go with 30 minutes of actual correction. Subtract that from 2 hours and 36 minutes, and we have 2 hours and 6 minutes. Now my Slumers video is 32 minutes, so let's subtract that. 2 hours and 6 minutes minus 32 minutes. And that leaves us with 94 minutes, or an hour and 34 minutes of just fucking yapping. The art commentary community has this idea or reputation that surrounds Ponder, that she's always right, that she does her research, tells the truth, and is without bias when she's talking about something. Many of them have went as far as saying that Ponder and Nezzie weren't biased in their two videos, and that they gave me the benefit of the doubt as much as they could. If the beginning of my part 1 wasn't enough, here are some of my favorite recent examples from 2024. From Just a Robot's comment section. To be honest, someone advising against talking to Ponder is a red flag, cause Octomama researches and makes sure what she's saying is correct. Or how about this from the collab comment section? Off topic, but I think Ponder and Nezzie could be online lawyers. The art audience also constantly and immediately runs to Ponder when anything fucking happens, asking if she's going to talk about it, that she needs to, that it needs her nuance. And many art tards have ran to Ponder begging her to defend them. Why? It's because she has a very good influence over that fucking community. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is up for debate, considering just how fucking stupid and gullible they are, but she does have a pretty good influence over them. One of the very reasons these videos are being made is because it's approaching the point of just complete fucking delusion. They view Ponder as some kind of moral and informative figure, and they also treat her like she's some kind of big bad. Take this for example. Oh honey, you and me both know that if Ponder decides to respond to you, you're gonna feel so much on your sorry little ass, laughing my fucking ass off. Enjoy the few minutes of fame. My 2 videos on their 2 videos shouldn't even be all that surprising to that community, because it isn't like this is the first time Ponder was wrong about something she covered years ago. The art community found out in 2023 that her defense of Spoctor, which became their general opinion years beforehand, like the good parrots that they are, wasn't as crystal clear as they thought. A recording of a call with Feghost, the names Junkie and Spoctor, was made public by Lyle Convoy. In it, Spoctor admitted to having a drive containing child pornography when he had turned 18, contradicting his previous claim that he had flushed it. There's also some shit with Feghost, and if you don't know what I'm referring to, I'll provide the context. In August of 2019, a situation arose to do with Feghost that resulted in a group chat called Pretty Little Schemers being made with Feghost, Dulu, and Ponder. At one point, they were even discussing deleting Feghost's messages, which is a little odd, because to Ponder, when you delete something, or at least when I deleted something, it meant that I was inherently trying to hide it. Later in November of 2019, a paste bin got out that detailed accusations against Feghost, claiming he had allegedly sexually assaulted 2 individuals while they were under the influence, and threatened them into silence, with one of them later on committing suicide. Feghost then confessed to doing it to both Ponder and Dulu. At least Feghost and one of the victims were drunk. This is what Ponder said within their group chat talking about it.
However, in November, another individual who was a friend of Feghost and Jay came forward with a paste bin that was basically just a list of testimonies about various wrongdoings that Feghost had allegedly committed, and nothing else happened after that. However, something that is absolutely crucial to why I no longer talk to Feghost and want to make this video is that there's no easy way to say this next part. As I said, another allegation made in the doc, as well as the pasteman later on, was one of Jay alleging that Feghost sexually assaulted her while making another girl, who we'll call A, watch after trapping them both in a room with them. A was said to have later committed suicide, and the pasteman stipulates that Feghost was mentioned in the note, or at the very least the abuse was. Some may think that seems implausible because they think justice would have come of it, but I believe that's an ignorant view to take on the matter, as the sentencing rate for silence is extremely low in both the US and in Canada, where Feghost is from, made even worse by the fact that the victims, J and A, were said to have been trans women who the law is already incredibly unkind to. And I brought this up to them to ask to clarify if this was just another lie or if they could expand upon what was being talked about, and I'll never forget how they responded in the call, because to this day it sends such a chill up my spine. Feghost said, "I was hoping you guys wouldn't ask about that," and admitted to being drunk and not only locking both girls in the room with them and groping Jay, who was drunk and couldn't consent, while the other girl was sober and had to sit and watch, but they also admitted to keeping both girls silent on the matter. Feghost also admitted the acts at a later date when the other individual came forward with the situation in the form of the pasteman. The assault happened in 2015, which, mind you, is when Feghost became a legal adult. Both the Google Doc and the pasteman contain half-truths, like mentioning that Jay killed herself but not mentioning that she was in jail at the time with no contact to anyone. And the doc, as far as I'm aware, does straight up lie with fabricated evidence of a fake offense regarding sending illicit photos to a child. But the fact of the matter is that Feghost admitted to the assault and trying to keep both girls quiet about what they did. They're a sex offender who clearly permanently altered these girls' lives for the worst.
However, Feghost later contradicted that in 2020, telling someone else that he wasn't under the influence. This wasn't a matter of them being confused or uncertain or even unknowledgeable on whether he did it or not. They flat out said he admitted to doing it. Feghost confessing this kind of shit to Ponder didn't cross a line for her to make a call out, and I'm only calling it a call out because her audience sure loves to tell themselves that that's what it was and what they did. They called me out. But some random edgy kid that made a bad video in October, that crossed the line for a hit piece. She decided to make 2 videos on me, totaling the length of Dune Part 1, lying about me, accusing me of doxing with no fucking evidence, taking me out of context, and spreading misinformation about me to hundreds of thousands of people because of my bad video. Feghost was even allowed to stick around in Ponder's Discord server, even though they knew this about him.
And this is something that Fegos has tried to keep me silent on ever since, both in VCs and in text, which, mind you, isn't a trend that started because of this. This is something that Fegos has done to me as far back as early 2019. Whenever we would have an altercation or anything, if I was in a shared space on Discord, like in a server or anything, they would find where I was and join, staying completely silent just to make sure I wasn't saying anything. And better yet, after I dropped them and started warning some of my friends, I found out that they also did this to another person who was even younger than me, back when they were a minor. And the fact that they listed the exact type of behavior that I experienced without me even telling them that was something Fegos did freaked me out.
Ponder and Dulu didn't come out about Fegos until January of 2021, with the very video that I'm showing you all clips from. Now I want to make something very clear because that community loves to misinterpret or twist my fucking words. I'm not roping Ponder in with Fegos because they were friends. I don't believe she's a bad person because of this, and I'm not saying she is at fault or responsible for what Fegos did, just because she associated with him or that they were friends. She had no involvement or blame with what Fegos had done. She had just found out about it, and Fegos confessed to her. I don't want this lost in any translation or people running with it to say that she had some kind of involvement that she didn't. Especially because guilt by association is a stupid fucking argument that cowards use to moral grandstand. I also don't believe she has or had some moral obligation to talk about Fegos. That would just be delusional entitlement. If it hasn't been made clear yet, I don't believe in that good versus bad, internet justice, accountability, crusader horseshit. And the reason for that's pretty simple. It's because of the very delusions and inconsistencies that riddle the tartlets who do believe in that shit. I'm bringing this up because of the sheer fucking hypocrisy from that community and just how ridiculous they are. How many people have they crusaded against with their internet justice accountability bullshit? Because they didn't come out about someone. Because they didn't tell everyone about someone. They didn't come out about something. Or that someone associated with someone else who did something bad. This is why people are pissed off about the FCK server. Because had anyone else participated in showing minors porn, not caring about it, or knowing and doing nothing, that community and the same people involved with the FCK server would be fucking crucifying them. We all fucking know it. They tried to crucify people for less. A quick and perfect example, just so that I'm not talking out my ass here. Nezziemonster knew that someone else, V Omega, being an adult and showing minors porn was bad as of August 2020. Yet Toasty got a pass when he did it. And she claims that she didn't know any better because she was just 19. She was a dumb 19-year-old. Despite the fact that she knew at the exact same fucking time that when someone else did it, it was a bad thing to do. Now there's also the SCC in 2023. They did some big calls with Lio Convoy over mainly two people named Keyblade and Tippy. Why? Because they associated with someone who associated with a groomer. Just associating with someone who associates with someone bad is a grave sin that must be rectified, with a horde of autists rallying behind some fat guy who does a Batman impression. Yet neither the art or slideshow community did that to Ponder, let alone Nezziemonster over the FCK shit. Now what I personally find interesting is that I was a priority for Ponder. To her, I was the bigger problem to talk about than Fegos was, especially considering many of the problems Ponder claimed to have with me and my video were just fictitious. Ponder obviously wanted some big bad for a video. She wouldn't have resorted to dishonesty and hypocrisy just to make me look as bad as possible if that wasn't the case. So why not just talk about Fegos? She wouldn't need to lie or be a hypocrite. She had his literal fucking confession. My problem isn't her continuing to be friends with him, and it isn't that she didn't make a video on him. I couldn't give a fuck less about all of that. It's that she knew about it, but decided I was worse because I was a meanie pants on Twitter and I made a bad video. And then decided to lie about me, to paint me even worse, when she could have just talked about Fegos. And the best part about all of that I just told you, this is the art community's moral figure and idol. The person the art community tells everyone that she is so grand and perfect. This is the same community that is obsessed with anyone that I have associated with to either demand people don't associate with me or to rope me in with whatever that person did for guilty by association. Something that they have tried to do for literally fucking years. In 2020, they were going around telling everyone I was friends with doxers, that I was having Sherman dox people for me, that I was behind him fucking with Nezziemonster's PayPal. No fucking evidence for it, but all because I stated that I spoke with him. so they all started repeating it. They still do it in 2024 with Lyo as their new head for their crusades. Other people have been condemned by the ArtCC and SCC for knowing and saying nothing about individuals like Feghost, or associating with someone those communities deem a problem, whether right or not. Yet Ponder gets a pass, as does many of their favorites. How many art drama folks, and I mean the same art drama and tea channels who hopped on every other bandwagon, did you see talk about the FCK? Or even individual members of the group? Ponder condemned me, lied about me, spread misinformation and conspiracies about me, all because I got details wrong in a bad video. A video everyone knew was bad. And I hurt people's fifis on Twitter. Yet Feghost can confess to her that he did some really fucking heinous shit in real life, and no call out. No Dune Link hit piece. No outcry by that community when they found out that she knew and remained friends for some time with him. But me associating with Sherman? Problem. Kumo? Problem. Gilded Poo? Problem. And someone else will likely be next. It's one big fucking joke that they want us to buy, to take seriously. It's why they hate me pointing it out. The only reason I'm even talking about all of this is because of this delusional reputation that Ponder has. That she's always honest and always gets her information right. She isn't and she doesn't. Just as the rest of the drama-crazed art loons, she can and has lied. Ponder isn't always correct, she isn't always honest, and she isn't without bias. If Ponder Sprocket was willing to lie about and falsely accuse me so casually, who was at the time a 16-year-old nobody, with a video that had just 4K views, if she's able to bamboozle a community for 3 to 4 years, who else is she willing to lie about, and who else has she lied about? I'm not here to tell you that I'm the moral pedestal either, or that you should listen to me instead. That's not the point of this at all. I don't care about that moral charade of a crusade, deeming one person good and one person bad, just to feel better about myself. The art community can keep their little sanctimonious act. My point is this: quit buying into everything someone tells you, especially from that fucking community, and to that community and whomever partakes in it. Quit relying on reputation as some guide. It is massively inconsistent and has a long history of failing you all, especially the audience. Reputations mean jack shit when you can lie about someone and it just be taken as fact. When you can be wrong and it just be taken as fact. When situations are so one-sided because one side of narratives flourish in that cesspool of a petri dish. When groups of people get together to smear other people and to control the narrative. You may think you're knowledgeable on a situation because your favorite art commentator told you about it, but I guarantee you there are details left out, and likely on purpose. The standards the art community's favorite content creators use on others, they don't follow, and they're thrown away at a moment's notice, especially when it comes back to bite them in the ass. Things like honesty and accountability are merely tools for them that they use as a punchline. Their standards, the things that they accuse others of to grandstand them and make them look bad. Like what constitutes an attempted doxing, lying by omission, lying about a minor, misinformation, hypocrisy, and false narratives. Those things are only relevant to the art community when they're trying to fuck someone over and when they can improve their own optics, how they're seen by the audience. Surely you can trust them if they tell you that they care about all these various moral lines and rules, right? Ponder Sprocket and Nezziemonster did the exact same thing that they said I did at the beginning of their part 1. They wormed their way into a situation they knew almost nothing about and presented themselves as though they had in-depth knowledge about me and my video, and then spread their misinformation and dishonesty as fact to hundreds of thousands of people. My video had 3 or 4K views initially, and no one liked it. But I'm the bad guy for the misinformation I spread, despite the fact that it was to less people than what they did. None of it makes any fucking sense. That said, the two of them were half right on one more thing, that with age comes greater understanding. As I've gotten older, it has become far easier to explain my points, and to especially navigate through that crowd's bullshit, so that I can show everyone how they really are, on an even larger scale. I've just gotten better at, I guess, articulating myself and explaining the problems of that community. At the end of the day, anything short of validating that shit show of a 2-part on me, her audience will just tell themselves that I'm doubling down or proving Ponder and Nezzie right. They'll use the same flawed arguments and claims from those 2 videos in order to defend the flawed arguments and claims from the 2 videos, repeating them as if they'll magically come true. Sound familiar? I wonder where they could have gotten that habit from. I know this for a fact because I wrote that part before my part 1 was uploaded, and some of them have already started doing it after part 1 came out. They also did it back in 2020 when I first spoke about these two videos. This was never about the truth for them, about what I really did or what really happened. This was about them having something that they thought they could just dangle over my head, about convincing themselves that they called me out, and to further fuel dislike and hatred of me. They already disliked me before Ponder Sprocket and Nezziemonster called me out, and before my video was even made in October of 2019. Even in September of 2019, any claim made about me was immediately taken as fact and repeated on Twitter. It's how the accusation of me attempting to dox Slumers came to be in the first place, from that goofy fuck D'Angelo Wallace, back when he was leading the art-tard accountability sieges. This was all because I mocked them to their faces for their delusional and inconsistent internet justice, that I didn't care for their silly social standing in their hug box, and because I didn't take them as seriously as they thought I should have. But why should I have? The very person they told themselves and everyone else that they held accountable and called out all throughout 2019 and 2020, Madame, who tried to dox a kid, threatened a different kid with being sued because he dared to criticize her, and stole thousands of dollars. Now how exactly did they hold her accountable? They thought YouTube videos and nagging her to the point of deleting her channels was accountability. And yet she's now loaded with money from other YouTube channels. But that Hugbox sure does believe they did something. They had themselves convinced of that. And me at 16 daring to not be intimidated by the power of their callouts, to even mock them for it. They hated it. And they hated me for it, because I remind them of everything that they hate and that their online sphere and culture is much smaller than what they want to believe. It's why they constantly compare me to people that live rent-free in their fucking heads, like Darkscythe and Mr. Medicare, as if that's a bad thing. It's not a coincidence that both of those individuals also used to mock these people, especially a few years ago when these crowds were much smaller and had even less influence. So they sought to call me out and teach me a lesson. And I'm not saying it like that to make these people seem more autistic and pretentious than they are, as much as they've been saying and will continue to say that I'm dishonestly framing this and using confirmation bias. This was that community's exact fucking sentiment that was said multiple times, and not just in the FCK server, but also by that community in the comments section to both of these videos. You can see these spurgs throughout the last 4 years going on about how I didn't learn my lesson, that I learned nothing, that I haven't changed or grown as a person because I don't kowtow to them, because I'm not a sensitive crybaby, and because I don't pretend to be nice. I say, and I said things that hurt their fifis, and because of that, I became an exception to many of their rules. And oh boy, do they contradict their rules. Many adults in that community made it a point that it's wrong for an adult to vilify and lie about a child, in the case of Slumers, up until it was a child that hurt their feelings, with the case of me. Adults lying about and vilifying a child was then celebrated and cheered by that same community and adults. It's wrong to lie by omission until it's against someone they don't like. It's wrong to lie. Lies should be noted and called out from what that community has said en masse throughout the years, until it's lies against someone they don't like. Some of them will even say that they draw the line at lying, that the one thing they can't stand is lies, the one thing that they don't do is lies, and then lie out their fucking ass. But hey, it was against people they don't like, and everyone lies. It's wrong to delete things because you're inherently trying to hide it, until them or their favorites want to hide something. It's wrong to censor comments until they or the preferred and favored people do it. It's wrong to make accusations without evidence until the favored people want to do it against someone they don't like, or someone who associates with someone they don't like. It's wrong to show minors porn in the case of V Omega and many before and after him that they've talked about. But it's different when their favorite people do it. So rest assured, Ponder, B, Nezzie, the FCK, the art community, and even the SCC. Oh, I learned something, and I shared it. After all, that's what this series is. Now, I fully expect the people who will come to defend her, possibly herself, to throw together some shoddy hit piece. Probably even dig into the people I've spoken with or associated with to try and rope me into any antics they were in at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if they resorted to the "you associated with doxers" and anything like that to make it offense. So to help you all out, and to save you the trouble, provide evidence I did the actual deed, rather than me knowing someone who did something bad, or having a conversation with someone who did something bad. Now, just before I go, I'd like to point out just one thing. Ponder's reasoning for not talking about any of this. Someone made this comment. So this content creator called Akumu has made a couple of videos calling you a hypocrite. Any opinions on that? And she replied with, I choose not to pay attention to someone who's very clearly looking for it in destructive ways. Destructive ways. Considering the fact that I've been honest to a fault, to the point that I've gone over my own mistakes and the things that I was wrong about, and what I did, and I've been completely open about that. If such level of transparency and honesty is destructive to you, what exactly does that imply? Because the truth is only ever destructive to misinformation and dishonesty. Why would truth and transparency be going about something in a destructive way? It's such an odd way to put that, Ponder. Maybe a Freudian slip, perhaps? Man, troll or not, content is content. If someone wants to deliberately look like an idiot so I can make a video, who am I to complain, XD? And you know what? I have to agree with Ponder here. I really, truly do. In fact, I couldn't agree more. So I suppose that's just another reason on top of the several so far as to why these two videos have been made.